Hello everyone, I'm very glad that you listened to my story. Please give me a follow and like the video if you enjoyed it. Feel free to comment and provide feedback so I can improve the sound quality. Yes, I will now continue the unfinished story. Chapter 79, Chapter 79, A Fish Leaps Over the Dragon Gate. Chapter 79, A Fish Leaps Over the Dragon Gate. After they gave their names, the fight began. Red silk materialized around Zhou Chan. This is Hong Ling, she said. It plays strong offense and is very fast. Junior brother Jiang, please don't push yourself if you feel like you can't handle it, alright. She waved her hand and the red silk floated at Jiang Hao at an impossible speed. Jiang Hao blocked it with his blade, but he was pushed back. The red silk was indeed very powerful. It was a completely different attack style from senior sister Xian. As expected of someone who had made it all this way and stood alone in her achievement. Zhou Chan was quite impressive. Just as he was thinking about that, the red silk attacked again. As the red silk attacked, he dodged and used demonic sound slash to attack Zhou Chan, who stood at a distance. However, no matter how many times he used that technique, Zhou Chan dodged it easily. Zhou Chan was indeed very powerful. She might even be close to advancing to the late stage. Jiang Hao couldn't afford to drag this out any longer. In the beginning, he had planned to keep the fight up until the opponent got exhausted. However, he realized that Zhou Chan was better than that. Jiang Hao used both demonic sound slash and the demonic sound 1000 miles at the same time. The technique was enough to defeat the red silk. In an instant, Jiang Hao appeared behind Zhou Chan and placed his hand on her shoulder. Zhou Chan put down her red silk. I lost. Thank you for letting me win, senior sister Zhou, said Jiang Hao politely. Zhou Chan didn't really feel disappointed. She left the arena after bowing to Jiang Hao. Out of curiosity, he appraised Zhou Chan. Zhou Chan, an inner sect disciple of White Moon Lake. Her talent is top-notch. She has pure and kind thoughts. She can sense malice around her. She rose to power in one day and is like a fish leaping over the dragon gate. She can sense malice around her. Jiang Hao was surprised. He now understood how she had been able to dodge every attack he threw at her. He had thought that she might have studied something like the Nameless Manual too. It turned out that she had the ability of higher perception. In the end, I wasn't trying to attack her. I just put my hand on her shoulder. Maybe she couldn't sense my intent then. Jiang Hao thought that that was the most likely explanation. He was a bit uneasy. It seemed that Zhou Chan could rise through the realms quite easily with her ability. Jiang Hao didn't dwell much on it. Someone of pure heart and mind like Zhou Chan deserved more than being stuck in a demonic section. As Jiang Hao left the arena, he saw some people engaged in a heated argument. Looking at people like them, Jiang Hao was glad that someone like Zhou Chan existed in a demonic section. On the way back, he met Han Ming. He looked happy. Senior brother Jiang, I made it to the top 4. Jiang Hao smiled at him. Congratulations, junior brother Han. Did you also enter the competition? Asked Han Ming. I did. Han Ming wasn't disheartened to hear that, but he did feel a bit uneasy. Han Ming made his way back to his house. On his way, he met some other seniors. Junior brother Han, did you make it to the semifinals? Han Ming nodded. I did. Wow, you're amazing. You just advanced to the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm, and you already made it to the top 4. Your future is bright. Han Ming smiled and thanked them. Back at his house, Jiang Hao studied the Nameless Manual. Although he was careful with the energy fluctuations he revealed when using his abilities, he still wanted to study the manual on a deeper level. He also wanted to learn the third form from the 7 forms of the Heavenly Blade. Unfortunately, he neither had the time nor the knowledge to begin practicing it. The middle stage of the Golden Core realm wasn't enough to learn the third form. He needed to advance further. He studied the manual till midnight and then began to cultivate. Every time he tried to study the manual, he had to activate the clear and pure heart ability to understand the content of the manual. It exhausted his spiritual energy. It was a pity he hadn't been able to obtain a purple bubble. Otherwise, he could have received another ability. The next day, after collecting the bubbles in his yard and the spirit herb garden, Jiang Hao headed to the central square to check the name list. Jiang Hao was surprised to find that his opponent was none other than Han Ming. He wondered how Han Ming was feeling about this. He headed to the arena and waited for Han Ming to arrive. After a while, Han Ming approached. "I know it'll be difficult to win against you, senior brother Jiang, but I'll still give it my all." "Names, please," said the Golden Core Realm senior. He glanced at Jiang Hao and gave him a nod. The senior seemed optimistic about Jiang Hao. After that, Han Ming cast a spell, and lightning spread around him. Then, he charged at Jiang Hao like a bolt of lightning. As the sword and saber clashed, Jiang Hao was pushed back a little. Han Ming had become much stronger, and he could sense another force surging around the sword. An inheritance. Jiang Hao guessed. He wasn't worried anyway. He began to attack. The saber and the sword clashed in a frenzy. The demonic slash intertwined with the lightning. Han Ming used his strongest move and slashed at Jiang Hao with the sword of lightning. Jiang Hao dodged it. He used the demonic sound 1,000 miles and stepped closer to Han Ming at such a speed that Han Ming didn't even notice him until Jiang Hao placed the flat of his saber on his forehead. For a moment, Han Ming had thought that he could win. "I lost." Han Ming put away his word. "Thank you, junior brother Han," said Jiang Hao as he sheathed his saber. There were some people watching the fight, but they didn't seem too surprised. Jiang Hao was a senior, after all. Jiang Hao didn't rush off to his house this time but sat and watched the fight between those in the Golden Core Realm and also the Primordial Spirit Realm. The techniques and spells they used were extraordinary. He tried to remember the spells so that he could use them in the future. The next day, Jiang Hao continued watching the fights between those in Golden Core Realms. He especially paid attention to the people in the peak stage of the Golden Core Realm. On the third day, Jiang Hao appeared in the square again. Today's match would decide the winner. Chapter 80, Junior Brother Jiang keeps a low profile. Chapter 80, Junior Brother Jiang keeps a low profile. Ning Wanping from Law Enforcement Hall. Jiang Hao was surprised to see someone from the Law Enforcement Hall competing in the arena. He was worried for a moment. He didn't want to provoke someone from the Law Enforcement Hall, but he realized that this was a competition, and the Law Enforcement Hall wouldn't be that petty. Jiang Hao had already made too many enemies. The most significant one was the Heavenly Joy Pavilion. If they couldn't find another vessel, they would keep targeting him. He approached the arena. After the 4 rounds were completed, the winners could choose the reward. A young man arrived at the arena. He was dressed all in black. His eyes were devoid of any motion. After careful observation, Jiang Hao confirmed that the opponent was in the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. He was very strong. When he released his aura, a bone-crushing cold radiated everywhere. His opponent definitely wasn't an ordinary person. Jiang Hao thought about it and realized that anyone who had made it to the top 4 obviously would be extraordinary. Han Ming hadn't made it to the top 3 despite being favored by the spirits of mountains and rivers. This person must be very powerful indeed. Losing at this stage wouldn't even feel disheartening because all the opponents were exemplary. "State your names, please," said the Golden Core Realm senior. Jiang Hao was surprised to see him yet again. He wondered if other categories had the same referee from beginning to end too. "Ning Wanping of Law Enforcement Peak," said Ning Wanping impassively. "Jiang Hao of the Cliff of Broken Hearts," said Jiang Hao. The opponent was in no hurry to attack him. Jiang Hao also stood there patiently. Soon, Jiang Hao realized that the opponent was using that time to raise his momentum. In an instant, his energy rushed toward Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao knew that such a movement was used in the second form of the 7 forms of Heavenly Blade. Jiang Hao used his saber's spiritual intent to block the attack. Ning Wanping's spiritual attack became faster and more relentless, but Jiang Hao's saber was enough to block the energy. To the outsiders, both were rooted on the spot and did nothing. Meanwhile, Jiang Hao and Ning Wanping were busy fighting with their aura and spiritual energy. How long do you think senior brother Jiang from the Cliff of Broken Hearts can last? I don't know. Let's go and watch other matches. This is getting boring. Okay. Let's go. A few people got up and left. They were just a few paces away from the arena when they heard a loud explosion. The sound startled everyone, and they turned around to check. They were surprised to see Ning Wanping on one knee trying to support himself with his broken sword. He spat out a mouthful of blood and his body shook. What happened? The people who were leaving were disappointed to have missed out on the action. Everyone wondered about the same thing. How had Ning Wanping lost? Jiang Hao sighed in relief. It was just as well that the opponent had raised his momentum to such an extent that he had exhausted himself. Otherwise, if this had dragged on any longer, his cultivation realm would have been exposed. While the opponent had used his sword along with his spiritual energy, Jiang Hao had used 3 slashes of his blade. The first slash was useless against the opponent. The second slash had broken Ning Wanping's sword. Jiang Hao held back on the third slash because Ning Wanping would have died otherwise. Thank you, Jiang Hao said softly and bowed. Likewise. Ning Wanping stood up calmly. Ning Wanping knew that he would have died if Jiang Hao hadn't held back on his last attack. Jiang Hao stood there as the senior approached him and announced him as the winner. He smiled at Jiang Hao. When do you want to choose the reward? Asked Zhan Lai. He had watched Jiang Hao fight from beginning to end. He noticed that junior brother Jiang was powerful but kept a low profile. His cultivation was solid, his Dharma treasure was extraordinary, and his saber techniques were top-notch. Can we do it now? Asked Jiang Hao. Of course, said Zhan Lai. Others might hear about it when it's announced officially, but you can still make the choice now. You are given the priority because you are the winner. Zhan Lai led Jiang Hao to the area where the rewards were showcased. You can choose the reward now. Jiang Hao pretended to look at each reward very carefully. He finally walked to the last item and chose it. It was the seed in the box. Are you sure you want this? Asked Zhan Lai. You can choose anything you want. You don't even have to worry about provoking anyone with your choice since this is a competition and the sect owns these treasures. Nobody will challenge you for choosing something else. Thank you, said Jiang Hao. I think this is perfect for me at the moment. The seed was what Jiang Hao wanted the most. It was the sole reason he had given his all in the competition. Other rewards were insignificant. Zhan Lai didn't say anything further. He gave Jiang Hao the box with the seed. Jiang Hao headed back to the Cliff of Broken Hearts. He needed to plant the seed near the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. After 7 days, he could uproot the seedling and plant it somewhere more spacious. It would cost him a lot of spirit stones. Zhan Lai watched Jiang Hao leave. He couldn't help but sigh. The one who won the competition ended up choosing the most useless reward of all. The others were lucky. The one ranked second would definitely be overjoyed. Zhan Lai couldn't say anything. Everyone made their own choices, after all. Jiang Hao planted the seed. He stood up and dusted off the dirt from his clothes. Now I wait for 7 more days. He headed to the spirit herb garden. He wanted to pick up some bubbles. If he waited until tomorrow, he would get only a few. When he arrived at the spirit herb garden, he saw that Cheng Zhou and the others were at their wits' end. What's wrong? Asked Jiang Hao. A few days ago, he had asked Cheng Zhou to investigate an area in the garden. Senior brother Jiang, I found out that the depleted area held bone flowers from the 100 Bones forest. How do you know that? Asked Jiang Hao. This morning, Uncle Rabbit discovered that there was a problem with another area in the garden. We checked the area, and it was severely depleted in nutrients like the other area we found yesterday. The only similarity was that bone flowers had been planted in both places. Take me there, said Jiang Hao. He was the one who looked after the spirit herb garden. If there was any problem with the spirit herb garden because of the herbs planted there, then Jiang Hao would be blamed for not taking care of the place. He would be accused of not doing his job well. There would be consequences. Chapter 81, Chapter 81, Harassing an Honest Person. Chapter 81, Harassing an Honest Person. The spirit beast was sniffing the area around the fence. When it saw Jiang Hao, it ran to him. Master, this area has the same problem as the last one. Jiang Hao nodded. He squatted down to check the soil. The area was lacking severely in nutrients. If this went on, it would take 2 or 3 years for the garden to recover. Where are the bone flowers? Asked Jiang Hao. The spirit beast led the way, and Jiang Hao followed it. After a while, he stood in front of a white flower. Even the stalk and the leaves were entirely white. The bone flowers were used for strengthening the bones and/or refinement of energy. It was an important spirit herb that was native to the 100 Bones forest. Usually, the bone flowers needed a very specific kind of area to grow. Occasionally, people planted the bone flowers in the spirit herb garden to raise them until they were ready to be harvested. There hadn't been any problems in the past. After examining the area closely, he realized that the flower was the cause of the depletion of nutrients. Jiang Hao used his daily appraisal on the flower. Mutated bone flowers. The mutated bone flowers have lost all the characteristics of the usual bone flowers. It mercilessly absorbs the surrounding nutrients. Yes, masterpiece. It was planted here to make things difficult for the guardian of the spirit herb garden. This was done to earn profit while obtaining nutrients simultaneously. Jiang Hao felt helpless. How could someone profit from destroying a spirit herb garden? He didn't know who Ye was. He had never heard that name before. How many bone flowers are there in the whole garden? Jiang Hao asked. Around 500, said Cheng Zhou. The bone flowers weren't very valuable. However, 500 of them could fetch a decent price. Inform the people of the 100 Bones forest. Tell them that we have a problem, said Jiang Hao. All right. Cheng Zhou did not hesitate. After Cheng Zhou left, Jiang Hao went to the market. He sold 12 of his 100,000 swords talismans. It fetched him about 300 spirit stones. The aftereffects of the fight with Azure Mountain had passed. The prices and demand for items had returned to normal. Prices for some items had even fallen. Jiang Hao barely managed to make 600 spirit stones in total. He was worried about the bone flowers and the problems associated with it. Jiang Hao went back to the spirit herb garden after that, but Cheng Zhou was nowhere to be seen. So, he returned to his house. Jiang Hao thought that he could meet Cheng Zhou tomorrow, or he would definitely come to find Jiang Hao if something was wrong. The next day, Jiang Hao still didn't see Cheng Zhou in the garden. That night, Jiang Hao couldn't sleep, so he cleaned his sword. The following day, Jiang Hao watered the heavenly fragrance Dao flower and headed to the spirit herb garden. He finally saw Cheng Zhou there. Senior brother Jiang, I went to look for the people from the 100 Bones forest yesterday. They said all other things have to wait because they are caught up in some urgent matter. We will need to wait for at least 5 days. Cheng Zhou lowered his head guiltily. I also found out that other spirit herb gardens are facing the same problem. Jiang Hao was worried. He didn't want to tell his master about it. Once he was accused, it would be troublesome. Jiang Hao wanted to solve the problem without attracting any attention to it. If the spirit herb garden couldn't be restored, there would be consequences. It seems the 100 Bones Forest sect is so fearless that they even try to destroy the whole spirit herb garden for profit. Uproot the bone flowers and place them far away from the spirit herb garden, said Jiang Hao. All right, said Cheng Zhou. Cheng Zhou didn't object. He felt partly responsible for the problem. Jiang Hao waited for 5 days, but the people from the 100 Bone Forest sect didn't come. Cheng Zhou had gone to confirm and had just returned. They said they need 5 more days. What about the other spirit herb gardens? Asked Jiang Hao. How are they faring? They haven't transplanted the bone flowers to another area yet, said Cheng Zhou. They feel that uprooting the bone flowers will have consequences. The bone flowers that had been uprooted had almost withered. Cheng Zhou was worried, but he didn't dare disobey Jiang Hao. The thing about demonic sects was that the strong harassed the weak. So, the guardians of the other spirit herb gardens wouldn't dare start any dispute, no matter how much they had to suffer for it. White Moon Lake also had a spirit herb garden, but the 100 Bones Forest would never dare to plant a mutated flower there. Zhou Chen was a formidable guardian. They feared offending her. They only dared to mistreat weaker guardians. Then let's wait for them a little longer, said Jiang Hao. The bone flowers had been transferred to an area far away from the spirit herb garden, so there was nothing to worry about. It had withered and was about to die. If they delayed any longer, things would escalate, and it would no longer be possible to solve the problem peacefully. Jiang Hao was willing to compensate for the dying bone flowers. He didn't care if the bone flowers died. Usually, ordinary bone flowers were very resilient. They didn't wither away so easily. This mutated version could only survive if it could absorb nutrients from other spirit herbs. Seeing Jiang Hao calm made Cheng Zhou feel at ease. Several other spirit herb garden guardians were already panicking. They didn't want to transplant the flower to an area outside the garden, so they watched as their garden suffered great damage. Jiang Hao instructed the spirit beast to keep an eye on the garden, and he worked on the spirit herbs. After finishing his work, Jiang Hao didn't hang around. He patrolled the garden to make sure there weren't any other problems. Jiang Hao couldn't help but sigh. He felt burdened. Not only did he have to be wary of the traitors and spies in the sect but also needed to be careful of his fellow disciples. 2 days later, Jiang Hao checked on the seed he had planted beside the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. He surrounded it with 99 spirit stones. He then watered it. Now, I have to wait 9 days more. After 9 days, the seed was supposed to take root and sprout. At that time, bubbles would start to appear. Jiang Hao knew that purple gold and gold bubbles would be impossible to get for now. The seed couldn't grow into a divine tree yet. For the past few days, Jiang Hao had spent most of his time selling talismans and studying the other forms of techniques from the 7 forms of Heavenly Blade. He studied the first and second forms very closely. Jiang Hao wanted to strengthen the 2 forms even more. He mostly used his usual saber to practice it but sometimes switched to the primordial Heavenly Blade. He still hadn't found out who Bai Ye was. He didn't dare ask around because he didn't want to raise suspicion. Another 3 days passed in a flash, and Jiang Hao finally saw someone from the 100 Bones Forest sect arrive at the Spirit Herb Garden. The one who had arrived was some disciple in the late stage of the Foundation establishment realm. His name was Li Kai. Jiang Hao had talked to him in passing. "Junior brother Jiang, you're not very kind," said Li Kai as Jiang Hao approached. Li Kai's dominating aura radiated around him. "Why do you say that, senior brother Li?" Jiang Hao ignored his aura. They were at the Spirit Herb Garden. The sect didn't tolerate fights in the garden. "I was only a few days late, but you uprooted the bone flowers and left it out to die." Chapter 82, Chapter 82, A New Divine Ability. Chapter 82, A New Divine Ability. "There was a problem with the bone flowers," said Jiang Hao calmly. "It was destroying the Spirit Herb Garden. It would have destroyed more areas if I hadn't uprooted it." Are you saying that the 100-Bone Forest sect is trying to destroy the spirit herb gardens? Asked Li Kai. How is it that only you have a problem with it? It seems the other spirit herb gardens let the bone flowers grow until someone from our sect came over to discuss it. Do you feel like you are powerful enough now and don't have to care about offending the other sects? Li Kai was on a roll. Nobody pointed out any problems at the time when we paid you to plant the bone flowers in the spirit herb garden. It seems the complaints are coming from you only when the bone flowers is about to mature. Is there really a problem with the bone flowers, or do you have a problem with us, junior brother Jiang? All the blame was shifted to Jiang Hao so casually. Jiang Hao didn't want to argue because it'd be useless anyway. I went to look for you twice, said Cheng Zhou in Jiang Hao's defense. I already mentioned the problem in detail, but none of you cared. If you hadn't dragged out the matter for so long, it wouldn't have come to this. Humph. Li Kai glared at the fearful Cheng Zhou. The 100 Bones Forest sect has paid you to maintain and take care of the bone flowers because we have no time. Do you think we would have paid you to raise the bone flowers if we had the time to run over whenever you called us? We did inform you that we had urgent matters to attend to. Isn't it normal for us to take a few days more to deal with those matters and then find the time to see you here? For a matter as small as that, you found it okay to destroy our flowers. Jiang Hao waved Cheng Zhou away and told him to continue with his work. Cheng Zhou turned and left reluctantly. Senior brotherly, how do you want to deal with this? It's better if we find a reasonable way to solve it. What's done is done anyway. All right, said Li Kai. You're right. A mature bone flower costs 5 spirit stones. This spirit herb garden was given a total of 500 bone flowers. That would be 2,500 spirit stones. Isn't the bone flower worth only 3 spirit stones? Asked Jiang Hao. That was before. The price of everything has risen since the fight with Azure Mountain, said Li Kai. I heard you made a lot of contributions to the sect lately. I'm sure you have some spirit stones to spare. Li Kai knew about Jiang Hao. He had done his homework properly before coming here. Man Long had asked Jiang Hao for help during the fight with the Black Heaven sect, and Jiang Hao had helped him. Man Long was smart. He received the reward for capturing the enemy but pushed Jiang Hao to take the fall by shifting the credit to him. In this way, most people, including the Black Heaven sect, thought that Jiang Hao was the reason Xian Yuantai was captured while Man Long reaped the benefits. Jiang Hao was silent. He didn't have 2,500 spirit stones. He had never seen that many spirit stones in his life. Jiang Hao could only pay 900 spirit stones. He had 20,000 swords talismans, but that was barely enough. Senior brotherly, will you be taking away the bone flowers too? Asked Jiang Hao as SNE glanced at TNE pile or Witneria bone mowers. Yes. The flowers belong to us. It's only right that I take them back, said Li Kai. Then shouldn't you reduce the price by a bit? Asked Jiang Hao. The bone flowers belong to us from the beginning. The compensation is your apology for destroying them. The two don't overlap. Do you have the spirit stones to pay for them or not? I know you earn spirit stones very quickly. You can pay the remaining amount in 3 months. Li Kai looked at him. I am reasonable, you know. If you can't pay in 3 months, you can take 6 months to pay back. However, the delay would add some interest. Jiang Hao now knew for sure that Li Kai had spent a lot of time to find out about him. He had done his homework well. All right, said Jiang Hao. He took out 500 spirit stones and handed them to Li Kai. Here. Please accept this for now. I'll pay the rest back within 3 months. Sure. You are very easy to get along with, junior brother Jiang. Li Kai smirked. I heard that your garden is suffering from depleting nutrients. I have a treasure here that can replenish the nutrients lost. I can sell it to you for 1,000 spirit stones. I wouldn't sell them to anyone at that price. All right. Thank you. Jiang Hao nodded. Jiang Hao took the 2 black pearls and watched Li Kai leave. He activated the daily appraisal ability. Li Kai, the 100 Bones Forest's inner sect disciple, at the late stage of Foundation establishment realm. He was instructed by Ming Zhuoquan to retrieve the bone flowers and extort you. He thinks that you are stupid, rich, and timid. You're the scapegoat in his eyes. He is going to report to Ming Zhuoquan 7 days later. Ming Zhuoquan. Jiang Hao vaguely recalled the name. He was the true disciple of 100 Bone Forest. Bai Ye didn't appear. Jiang Hao decided to find Ming Zhuoquan in 7 days. He looked for Cheng Zhou and asked him if he was all right. After confirming that he was okay, Jiang Hao buried the 2 black pearls in the areas where the bone flowers had been planted. The nutrients did get replenished, but the land wasn't as fertile as before. If he wanted the area to recover from the deficiency, he needed to find something else. Jiang Hao decided to visit the spirit herb garden tomorrow to make sure there was no other trouble. He then headed back to his house and continued studying the second form of the 7 forms of the heavenly blade. Days went by, and Jiang Hao spent his time between his house and the spirit herb garden. He worked tirelessly. On the 7th day, Jiang Hao woke up early in the morning. He watered the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. The scent of the flower cleared his mind. However, his attention wasn't focused on the heavenly fragrance Dao flower today. He was delighted to find that the seed of the immortal peach tree had sprouted. The tender seedling had pushed through the soil and unfurled its delicate leaves. There was a purple bubble beside it. Divine ability fragment +1. It wasn't a gold bubble, but Jiang Hao was still happy. He had waited for a purple bubble for so long. He could finally obtain another divine ability. He didn't rush to get it. Instead, he activated the daily appraisal ability. Peach tree sapling, it is related to the immortal peach tree. After bearing. Peach tree sapling, it is related to the immortal peach tree. After bearing fruit, it will reincarnate 9 times and fully grow into the immortal peach tree. Placing it near a divine item and watering it with a bowl of water every day will make it grow faster and bear more fragrant peaches. A bowl of water every day. Jiang Hao was surprised. The seed had seemed very high maintenance in the beginning because it was supposed to be surrounded by 99 spirit stones. However, it was fairly easy to tend to after taking root. Jiang Hao was curious. Will surrounding it with more spirit stones make a difference? As for placing the sapling near a divine item, Jiang Hao didn't have to worry about it. It was already growing near the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. Jiang Hao returned to his room. Divine ability, 3/3, can be obtained. Jiang Hao chose to obtain the ability. His thoughts scattered. Jiang Hao felt his spiritual energy gather at the center of his forehead. He realized that the new ability would be concentrated there. A few moments later, he knew the name of this new divine ability, Reappearance of the Hidden Spirit. Chapter 83, Chapter 83, Another Kill. Chapter 83, Another Kill. Clear and Pure Heart, Reappearance of Hidden Spirit. Lifeblood, 40/100, can be cultivated. Cultivation, 45/100, can be cultivated. Divine ability, 0/3, cannot be obtained. I need to find more purple bubbles for one more ability. Jiang Hao wondered where he could find purple bubbles. Should I wait for the immortal peach tree to mature? He didn't know how long he would have to wait. He didn't think much about it for now. Jiang Hao focused on his new ability. He raised his hand to feel the center of his forehead. What kind of power is this? He activated the ability. The divine ability had 2 parts. When he activated it, all his spiritual energy moved toward the center of his forehead and concentrated into a vortex. It was unstoppable, but Jiang Hao didn't panic. He waited and let the energy flow to the center of his forehead. Jiang Hao realized that this was the first part of the ability, Hidden Spirit. The next was reappearance. When all the energy was swept and concentrated into a vortex, the second part of the ability could be activated to restore the energy to his body. Jiang Hao realized that this ability was very useful, especially when he was too exhausted to fight and had to face a strong opponent. He could then use the stored spiritual energy and instantly recover. Jiang Hao wondered what would happen if he activated the ability when he was at his peak. He decided to try this new ability for the next few days and get more familiar with it. After that, Jiang Hao headed to the spirit herb garden. He stood at the entrance and looked at the sky. The sky was a deep blue today. The day is so beautiful today. I can finally sleep in peace after tomorrow, said Jiang Hao. Master, you haven't been sleeping well, asked the spirit beast. What about you? Asked Jiang Hao without answering the question. Have you been sleeping well? I'm always in the courtyard. I sleep late, but I wake up very early. Jiang Hao knew that it spent most of its time staring at the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. It wanted to lick the petals of the flower but held back in fear every time. When it got tired of staring at it, it would then fall asleep late in the night. It then woke up before dawn and stared at the flower again. That was its routine. Master, are we going to the spirit herb garden again? Can we go somewhere else today? Asked the spirit beast. I can't. Jiang Hao shook his head. Then how will the sect know about my existence? They should all know about me and understand how invincible I am. Jiang Hao said nothing. He didn't know how to tell the beast that this was a demonic sect. Someone would probably kill it if they discovered it. Jiang Hao was counting on the gold bubble the beast might give. Once it stopped giving bubbles, Jiang Hao could throw it out if it wanted to roam around so much. Master, can you get me a storage treasure? I can't even accept gifts from people without it, said the spirit beast. Find Cheng Zhou and get him to find you a suitable treasure, said Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao then headed to the spirit herb garden and the bubbles swarmed over to him. Strength +1, spirit +1, normal, long saber +1, endurance +1. Vitality +1. Jiang Hao sensed the minute changes in his attributes as the bubbles absorbed into his body. In the afternoon, Han Ming came to visit him. He gave him a token and said that it was from the Lawless Tower. There is a place at the side of the Lawless Tower where you can absorb plenty of energy. I often go there when I need to increase my cultivation. Han Ming smiled. I worked hard outside and did well in the competition because of it. I feel like I had an advantage because of that. You can make use of it too. Jiang Hao realized that Han Ming was here to show off again. You're truly amazing, junior brother Han. Jiang Hao humored him. Han Ming left feeling very smug of himself. Jiang Hao couldn't help but sigh as he saw Han Ming leave. If Han Ming was this way with everyone in the demonic sect, someone might try to get rid of him. A demonic sect was the least safe among all places in the world. The next day, a man took a small path to the 100 Bones forest. It was in the evening and the sun had already set. Everything was silent. Not even the birds chirped. Senior brother Ming, I'm here to pay my respects, said Li Kai. A white-robed man walked into the courtyard. His eyes were cold. They held no emotion. He looked at Li Kai. Come in, he said. Li Kai walked into the man's house. He took out his storage treasure and handed it to Ming Zhuoquan. This is our harvest this time, senior brother Ming. Ming Zhuoquan took the storage magic treasure and checked it. His brows furrowed slightly. There are spirit stones here but no other things. Not just a small amount, said Li Kai. I have yet to collect 2,000 spirit stones from Jiang Hao. He is from the Cliff of Broken Hearts and has many spirit stones. I told him I can give him more time, but he'd have to pay interest. He refused. Jiang Hao, asked Ming Zhuoquan. Is that the same person that Man Long threw under the bus to escape the attention of the Black Heaven sect? Yes. But we don't have to worry. I asked around and found out that he won't create unnecessary trouble. Hates confrontation. Always keeps to himself. Will be fine. Can he afford it, though? He can. The Heavenly Joy Pavilion made him pay 1,000 spirit stones in 3 months. He paid it back with no problem at all, said Li Kai. 1,000 spirit stones in 3 months. Maybe we need to take good care of this person if he can afford to pay so much, said Ming Xiuoquan as he took out a pill from his pocket and threw it at Li Kai. Here. This is for you. You did a good job. This pill can help you advance very quickly. Li Kai accepted the pill and thanked him profusely. He had worked so hard for this pill. Tonight, he could finally advance to the peak stage of the Foundation establishment realm. He would then be one step away from advancing to the Golden Core realm. Just then, he heard something buzzing past his head. A long spear pierced through Li Kai's head at lightning speed. His head exploded. Blood splattered on Ming Xiuoquan's face. He couldn't understand what had just happened. Li Kai didn't even have the time to react before he dropped dead. Chapter 84, Chapter 84, The Consequences of Killing a Formidable Disciple. Chapter 84, The Consequences of Killing a Formidable Disciple. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation. Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Li Kai was dead. He died right in front of Ming Xiuoquan, and he couldn't even do anything. He felt shocked and powerless. Ming Xiuoquan was at the Golden Core realm. He calmed himself and looked around. However, in the next second, a saber stabbed him from behind. The robe on his body protected him. Ming Xiuoquan sighed in relief. He didn't waste any time. He started to gather his power. A purple light flashed. His defense shattered and his robe disintegrated. The silver-white blade pierced through Ming Xiuoquan's body. The attacks had happened so fast that there was only a difference of a few seconds between Li Kai's death and Ming Xiuoquan's fall. Please, I'm willing to submit to you. I'll work for you, said Ming Xiuoquan. He didn't want to die. Forget it. Not in this life. The black saber also emanated purple energy as it slashed Ming Xiuoquan's throat. I'm a formidable disciple. The saber flashed again. This time, Jiang Hao used the second form of the heavenly blade, mountain suppression. Ming Xiuoquan was cut into pieces. Even formidable disciples have just one life, said Jiang Hao. He then left with the storage treasure. Jiang Hao looked at the storage treasure. It had belonged to Li Kai. He inspected the place but found no other treasures inside. He didn't find any clue about Bai Ye either. I wonder who he is. Ming Xiuoquan was in the middle stage of the Golden Core realm. Bai Ye might be even stronger. I might not be able to deal with Bai Ye right now. Jiang Hao didn't wait any longer. Before he attacked Ming Xiuoquan, he had used the daily appraisal on him. However, he had learned nothing important from him. There are a total of 1,600 spirit stones, thought Jiang Hao as he looked into the storage treasure. I paid 500, so who are these from? Jiang Hao asked around and found out that at least 4 other people had been tricked. It was a pity that people tried to do this sort of thing. The guardians of the spirit herb gardens volunteered to work in exchange for sect resources. Speaking of which, I haven't received any resources for a long time. After taking the spirit stones and the 3,000 black pearls, Jiang Hao destroyed the storage treasure. He would have to face another investigation by the law enforcement hall later. He didn't know how serious the death of a formidable disciple was. He could only wait for Lu Xingchen to arrive. After that, he returned to his house to practice the new divine ability. Early the next morning, Jiang Hao opened his eyes and felt instantly re-energized. The power stored in the new ability really did wonders for him. This is truly amazing. He had just used the reappearance part of the new ability. The surge in power he felt was extraordinary. He almost wanted someone in the late stage of the Golden Core realm to provoke him so that he could test his new power. Jiang Hao caught himself. He couldn't afford to be reckless. The reappearance of hidden spirit ability would be his trump card. He wouldn't use it as he pleased. Divine abilities are so useful. I wonder how long it'll take me to collect purple bubbles again. Jiang Hao walked out of his house after storing his power in the hidden spirit in the middle of his forehead. The spirit beast was already waiting for him in the courtyard. "You woke up so early today," said Jiang Hao. "Master, something has happened," said the spirit beast. It sprinted up to Jiang Hao to show him its collar. "Look, it's cracked." "Then don't wear it." "No. If I don't wear it, how will others know that I'm your spirit beast?" The spirit beast was anxious. "Master, buy another one for me. If you do, I'll tell you something important." A collar would cost him more than 1,000 spirit stones. Jiang Hao sighed. It was just too pricey. However, the spirit beast was right. If he didn't get it a collar soon, others would target the beast. He had 1,900 spirit stones in total. If he spent 1,000 on a new collar, he would be left with only 900. Jiang Hao didn't even know if he could afford more tea leaves for the Demoness. Jiang Hao decided to go to the market next time and decide there. He appraised the black pearls. Nutrient Pearl, by Yes Masterpiece. It's a product he developed in order to advance. It can provide nutrients to the soil and can also cause spiritual energy to increase abnormally. By yeah again. Jiang Hao was curious about what realm the person belonged to. He was definitely someone knowledgeable if he could develop such devices. Jiang Hao wondered if he would get in trouble for taking so many nutrient pearls. It was better to advance to the next stage as soon as possible. Jiang Hao walked out of the courtyard to head to the spirit herb garden and ran into Lui Xing. He was followed by 2 other law enforcement hall disciples. All 3 looked very solemn. Jiang Hao felt uneasy. He thought there would be at least a few days before they sought him out. "Junior brother Jiang, we meet again." Lu Xing looked very serious. "Senior brother Lu, hello. What brings you here?" asked Jiang Hao. "There was an accident. We are searching for a murderer. We need to observe the people related to the victims for a few days," said Lu Xing. Jiang Hao realized that the death of a formidable disciple in the Golden Core realm was a big deal. "And this victim is somehow related to me?" asked Jiang Hao. "Yes. Remotely, I should say," said Lu Xing. "You need to come with us. Before we go, could we take a look inside your house? It's part of the process. I hope you don't mind." Lu Xing turned to the other 2 people behind him. "Go in and search. Please be considerate. Don't damage his things." Lu Xing didn't follow them inside. He stood near Jiang Hao. "Is there anything significant in your storage treasure, junior brother Jiang?" Jiang Hao's heart sank, but he didn't dare show any emotion on his face. He remained calm. "Nothing much. A few talismans, medicinal pills, and some spirit stones." "That's good," said Lu Xing casually. "If you venture to any places which are guarded, they will check your storage treasure. I'm just informing you." Jiang Hao was shocked. Things had indeed turned very serious. Chapter 85, Chapter 85, Should I Ask That Woman for Help? Chapter 85, Should I Ask That Woman for Help? Lu Xing's words shocked Jiang Hao. There were 3,000 nutrient pearls inside his storage treasure. If his storage treasure was investigated, Jiang Hao would surely be exposed for Zhuoquan's death. Jiang Hao was relieved that Lu Xing wasn't in a hurry to check it now. He felt that he was doomed, but he maintained his cool. "I have to find a way to hide the storage treasure away," thought Jiang Hao. When the people from the law enforcement hall were done with their search, Jiang Hao followed them outside. It wasn't like he had a choice to refuse. We are heading to the place where the law enforcement hall conducts its investigation. The investigation might last for 7 days. I'll have to trouble you for that duration, junior brother Jiang, said Lucien Chen politely. Of course, it's no problem at all, said Jiang Hao. Which disciple was killed? A disciple from the 100 Bones Forest, said Lucien Chen. Junior brother Jiang, do you have any sort of beef with Li Kai? We had a little disagreement with matters related to the spirit herb garden, said Jiang Hao. Lucien Chen nodded. 4 other guardians of the other spirit herb gardens have been taken along to the law enforcement hall too, he said. We had to round up everyone who had contact with the 100 Bones Forest disciples in the recent days for questioning. Senior brother Li is an inner sect disciple, right? Asked Jiang Hao. It's hard to say. The law enforcement hall is taking over the investigation for this, said Lucien Chen. I don't have the qualifications to head the investigations related to formidable disciples. Otherwise, I would have been able to tell you more about it. Jiang Hao nodded. What is the general process when it comes to such investigations? Well, first, the people connected to the case are all rounded up for questioning. They are observed for a while. This lasts for about 2 days at most, said Lucien Chen. Then, the investigation officially begins depending on the clues collected. That might last about 3 days. The last 2 days are set aside for the outcome. Normally, it doesn't take that long, said Lucien Chen. The 7-day duration is to make sure the investigation is unbiased, and the 12 branches are informed about the developments. Jiang Hao had many questions. He wanted to ask what would happen if someone vouched for him. Would the sect let him go? The murderer would be thrown into the lawless tower as punishment. His realms would be eaten away. Perhaps he could still mine and collect bubbles and try to find some way to bypass the lawless tower. The mine is destroyed. It still hasn't been renovated. Maybe I can find work somewhere else as a laborer. Jiang Hao's heart sank. It was over for him. I wonder if the reappearance of hidden spirit ability would be enough to fight against the lawless tower. No, if I'm caught, nothing can save me unless my master protects me. That's unlikely. Internally, Jiang Hao was in turmoil. Outwardly, he seemed fine. According to Lucien Chen, it was unlikely for the law enforcement hall to ask for his storage treasure for at least 2 days. As long as Jiang Hao could find a secluded place to hide the nutrient pearls, he would be fine. Who should I ask for help? He looked at Lucien Chen. Jiang Hao didn't think he could help. Besides, he couldn't confess. He would be taking a risk without knowing whether Lucien Chen would help him for sure. It was too dangerous. Who else? That woman. Maybe he could ask her to visit him on the pretext that she needed to take her flower away. Compared to Lucien Chen, Jiang Hao trusted her more. There have been multiple murders in the sect, but this time, it's a formidable disciple who ended up dead. So many things are involved. The law enforcement hall cannot let it slide because that would mean that the killer is roaming free while we cannot do anything about it. It would ultimately shake the foundation of the sect. The law enforcement hall is taking over fully to find that murderer, said Lucien Chen. Jiang Hao hadn't realized that things would escalate to this level. So if I'm killed someday, will the law enforcement hall do everything in its power to find the murderer? Asked Jiang Hao. Lucien Chen laughed. Do you still remember the case that I mentioned to you before? A murderer was roaming free in the sect. He relied on his ability to hide and kill anyone that could provide a clue to his whereabouts. The sect master wanted him to be put down. Then, the law enforcement hall applied for the sect's supreme treasure, the Heavenly Essence Soul Modeling Mirror. They were determined to find the murderer at all costs. They eventually caught him and killed him on the spot. Lucien Chen looked at Jiang Hao. It was from that time that the law enforcement hall tightened its rules. Those on the law enforcement hall's list, whether as a suspect or a witness, are given full protection. Of course, Sometimes the rules make exceptions, like junior sister Yunruo. Jiang Hao lowered his head and sighed. The iron doors closed with a loud bang. Jiang Hao was made to stay in a small room. There was a big hole in one corner of the ceiling that let in a bit of light that did nothing to brighten the room. There was nothing in the room, except a mattress. He sat down on it and observed his surroundings. With his study of the Nameless Manual, he could now detect slight fluctuations in spiritual energy around him. This was simply a detention room in the law enforcement hall. The security wasn't strong, and the room didn't have magical protections. As someone in the middle stage of the Golden Core realm, I could easily escape from here, but doing so would be equal to admitting to guilt. The sect will hunt me down, but waiting here to be proved guilty is equally dangerous. Once he was proven guilty, he would be thrown into the lawless tower. Would anyone even try to save him? Maybe Elder Baizi could help him, since she was the one who had brought him the heavenly fragrance Deo flower, or maybe that woman in red. However, there was a possibility that Elder Baizi wouldn't care. By the time Hong Yi arrived, it might already be too late. Jiang Hao took a deep breath and looked up at the ceiling. Jiang Hao regretted taking the nutrient pearls. He might have been able to get away with killing a formidable disciple, but he had made a grave mistake by taking the pearls. If they searched him thoroughly, they would discover the pearls. If Jiang Hao got out of this situation, he would never make such a stupid mistake again. Jiang Hao thought about how to save himself. He could either break out of here and run, or he could ask Lu Xingchen for help by exposing himself. Either that, or he could ask that red Demoness for help. The woman in red knew a lot about him. If he could find something about her and use that as leverage to at least help him hide his storage treasure, he might be able to get away this time. But how would he contact her? He had 2 days at most. He needed to decide what to do in these 2 days. Jiang Hao stayed put in the room and waited for the days to pass. He was waiting for the final decision. In the worst case scenario, he might have to depend on Lu Xingchen to buy him some time. The next morning, Jiang Hao was woken up by a noise in the room. He turned around to see a white shadow crawling down from the hole in the ceiling. The spirit beast's head looked down from the hole. It grinned when it saw Jiang. "Master, you didn't buy me a collar." Jiang Hao was speechless. Chapter 86, Chapter 86, The Demoness Arrives Again. Chapter 86, The Demoness Arrives Again. Jiang Hao was surprised and delighted to see the spirit beast. He didn't know that the beast would come for him. It had gone through so much trouble just for a collar. "How did you get in?" Jiang Hao asked. Although the security was not that strict in the detention rooms, it would still be difficult for a beast in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm to sneak in without being detected. "I saw the hole in the ceiling and climbed in," said the spirit beast as it jumped and landed on the ground. "Besides, I have something that allows me to travel to places undetected." As the rabbit jumped down, it seemed to be covered in a white mist. It was visible for a fleeting moment, and then it disappeared from sight. Jiang Hao picked the beast up by the back of its neck and looked at it closely. The spirit beast crossed its hands indignantly. "How is this possible?" "What is it?" asked Jiang Hao. "I did say I could tell you something important if you bought me a collar, but you didn't listen." Jiang Hao hadn't expected the beast to have such an ability. The spirit beast's appearance had opened new options for Jiang Hao. Maybe there was hope yet. Jiang Hao activated the daily appraisal ability. Evil spirit beast, signs of high intelligence. The beast is at the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm. It has just discovered its innate power to deceive the world, weaken its presence, and bypass simple array formations and human perception. It is from the bloodline of the evil beast. Feed it 100 spirit stones for 49 days to further activate its dormant bloodline. Feeding it spirit stones every day can increase its favorability. Now, it reveres you. The spirit beast's ability was indeed something. However, its ability was still weak. It could only bypass simple array formations and deceive those in lower cultivation realms. The beast had entered without anyone knowing, but it might not be able to leave in the same way. Master, please get me a collar. This one has already cracked so much. Jiang Hao was silent. He placed the beast down on the floor. I remember you asking for a storage treasure before. Cheng Zhou got one for me, said the spirit beast as he showed it to Jiang Hao. It's really nice, said Jiang Hao. Now, listen to me. Will you be discovered if you try to leave? Nope. Jiang Hao smiled. He transferred the nutrient pearls, spirit swords, sabers, and medicinal pills to the spirit beast's storage treasure. Here. Take this, and go out the way you came in, said Jiang Hao. Don't let anyone near your storage treasure. I'll definitely buy you a collar when I get out of here. Really? The spirit beast was delighted. Jiang Hao nodded. Yes, but only if you manage to remain undiscovered. Bah! Leave that to me. I'm invincible, said the beast. Hide your storage treasure somewhere secluded where no one can find it. You can retrieve it when I tell you it's safe. The spirit beast nodded readily and climbed out of the hole in the ceiling. It disappeared from sight. Jiang Hao finally calmed down. It was risky to depend on the woman in red, Lucine Chen, or even Elder Beizi. The woman in red was his safest option out of the three, but she was unpredictable. The spirit beast was the best choice. It would never betray him, but he still worried that it would be caught by someone outside. Suddenly, there was a commotion. On the right? Chase after it, came a voice from outside. Jiang Hao's heart skipped a beat. The heaven extinction goo poison was helping him stay calm. Without it, he didn't know what he would have done. He was still too young and immature. No matter how much he tried to be careful, he always got into unnecessary trouble. Jiang Hao sighed. The most important thing right now was to find an opening for himself to be free from this place. The commotion outside died down. Jiang Hao waited. If the spirit beast was caught, it would be over for him. Sure enough, there was a knock on the door. Junior brother Jiang, your actions have been exposed, but I can still save you. It was an unfamiliar voice. Jiang Hao wanted to believe that someone was willing to help him, but he wasn't that naive. I don't understand what you are trying to say, said Jiang Hao. You know what I mean. You only have one chance. Do you want to seize it? Jiang Hao realized that the person outside might be someone sent by the law enforcement hall to lull him into a sense of security so he would confess everything. That unfamiliar person didn't even mention the spirit beast, which meant the beast might have already escaped. Jiang Hao remained silent. The person outside sighed in frustration and left while muttering something. Jiang Hao waited. There was no sound in the darkness. He didn't hear anyone outside. The next day, when he opened his eyes, he saw a figure in red sitting beside him. It was the woman in red. She was looking up at the hole in the ceiling. When she saw him wake up, she turned to face him. It seems you like small and confined spaces. First, the mine, and now, this. Jiang Hao heaved a sigh of relief. He bowed awkwardly. Senior, greetings. He didn't know how she got here, but he knew by now that she could do anything. Hong Yue waved her hand. A table, 2 chairs, and a teapot with hot water appeared in an instant. She sat down on the chair. Do you have any tea on you? Yes. Jiang Hao always carried the red azure tea that he had bought. He got up and hurriedly made some tea. If the spirit beast hadn't appeared yesterday, she'd have been his saving grace. Chapter 87, Chapter 87, was the Demoness waiting for me to ask her for help? Chapter 87, was the Demoness waiting for me to ask her for help? Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation. After brewing the tea, Jiang Hao stood at the side. The room was small and quiet. He was worried that the door might open, and someone might find her here. How long are you going to be here? Hong Yue asked as she sipped her tea. Maybe 4 or 5 more days, said Jiang Hao. She made it sound as though he had come here willingly. He didn't want to stay here at all. If the spirit beast wasn't caught, he would be allowed to leave in 4 or 5 days. The whole investigation only took 7 days. If there were no evidence against him, he would be released. I thought you liked small and dark places, said Hong Yue. Senior, you misunderstood. This place doesn't compare to my house, said Jiang Hao. Hearing this, Hong Yue became interested and asked, then how does your residence compare to the mine? I meant I like my house. I was in the mine to help out another senior, said Jiang Hao. Hong Yue looked at him with a faint smile, but Jiang Hao remained calm. He did not believe that this woman could see through his thoughts. After Hong Yue poured herself another cup of tea, she said calmly, use the divine ability that you used on me last time. The daily appraisal. Jiang Hao was a little hesitant since he might have to face interrogation later, and he wanted to save his ability for that time, but he had no choice. He lowered his energy consumption as much as possible. Senior, I used it? Hong Yue was just raising her teacup to her lips. Her hands stopped. She looked at Jiang Hao. He just stared at her without blinking. A few moments later, he was slammed against the wall by a terrifying force. He stood up in pain. Thankfully, he wasn't injured. It is no wonder you only get along with that beast, said Hong Yue. You're full of lies. Jiang Hao didn't dare to say anything and just stood there quietly. I'll give you another chance to use that divine ability, said Hong Yue. Jiang Hao sighed inwardly. He had no other choice. He did activate his ability this time. The information given by his ability hadn't changed. He could only see her name followed by a bunch of question marks. I used it, he said truthfully. This time, Hong Yue didn't say anything, but instead sat quietly and drank her tea. Jiang Hao couldn't understand this woman. She was a woman of few words. This was the longest she had stayed with him. Jiang Hao made more tea and served her. Hong Yue only stood up when the sun began to set, and everything around Jiang Hao disappeared. The chairs, table, and teapot were all gone as though they had never been there in the first place. Next time I visit you, I don't want to see you here. She didn't say what would happen if she found him here next time, but the implication was clear. The air turned so cold and oppressive that Jiang Hao had a hard time breathing. I understand, said Jiang Hao. She just looked at Jiang Hao, and when she saw that he didn't say anything else, she turned around and left. There was a red shadow that disappeared after a while. Jiang Hao heaved a sigh of relief. She was finally gone. However, it was strange that she had stayed here for so long this time. She even paused for a while when she looked at him right at the end. Was she waiting for me to ask her for help? Jiang Hao didn't feel that the woman in front of him was particularly kind, but the heavenly fragrance Dao flower was in his courtyard. She had given it to him to raise it. That was proof enough that he was of some value to her. She would help him if he asked. Whether it was this woman, Lucine Chen, or any others, they would help him for a price. In the absence of the beast, he would have chosen this woman to help him. If he had known she would come, he might not have asked the beast to take the storage treasure. Now, there was nothing to do but wait. At night, the door of the small black room opened, and Jiang Hao was brought out. He found himself in a slightly dark room with 3 people sitting across from him, 2 men and a woman. In the middle sat a bearded man. Jiang Hao from the Cliff of Broken Hearts, he said. Yes. Jiang Hao nodded. Sit down. I have something to ask you. Jiang Hao sat down calmly. You are much calmer than the others, I'll grant you that, said the woman on the left. Although he couldn't see their faces, they didn't sound young. The one on the right sounded younger than the other two. I'm the Law Enforcement Hall's Deacon Elder, Fan Lu. I'm also the person in charge of this matter. I hope you'll cooperate and tell us everything you know, said Fan Lu solemnly. Jiang Hao nodded. Of course. We have reason to believe Li Kai came to look for you. Why? There was a problem with the bone flowers that they planted in the spirit herb garden. How did that go? He made me pay 500 spirit stones. Did you hate him for it? I didn't really hate him, but I was a little frustrated. What were you doing when Li Kai died? Jiang Hao wanted to say he was cultivating in his room, but he didn't. It had been nighttime when he had killed them. When did he die exactly? Doesn't matter. Did you deliberately throw out the bone flowers so that they would wither away? When Lu Chen died, he left behind some clues relating to the Cliff of Brother Hearts. Do you think that relates to you? That is, Jiang Hao was taken aback. Just answer yes or no, said the woman. How many spirit stones are there in Li Kai's storage pouch? I don't know. When Cheng Zhou found out that there was a problem with the bone flowers, did he look worried or angry? Worried. When Li Kai died, did he look happy or depressed? I don't know that. Did Ming Ziuoquan bring a storage magic treasure with him? Jiang Hao was confused. I don't even know what to say to that. I don't know. At this moment, Jiang Hao felt puzzled. The questions had no logic to them. These people just asked random questions to confuse him. He felt as though something was trying to affect his mind, similar to senior sister Yunruo's bewitching technique. In the wee hours of the morning, the questioning stopped. T wanted to check his storage treasure. He handed it over. They rummaged through it and returned it to him. All right. You can go back to your house in 2 days. Until then, we might have to trouble you again. Jiang Hao nodded and walked out. The three people inside looked at each other. He was by far the best, said Fan Lu. He was calm even under my bewitching spell. I don't know how he did it, said Yan Mei. I didn't find anything special in the storage treasure either. He is from among the top 10 disciples of the sect. We can't detain him for too long without evidence. If we find nothing else tonight, we'll have to let him go. Yan Mei nodded. I can't shake off my suspicion, though. He is in the top 10 because Manlong threw him under the bus. The Black Heaven Sect and the Wind Lightning Sect are both watching. Whoever has the merit will attract their attention. It won't be long before someone comes after him. At that time, even Ku Wu might not be able to protect him. The aftermath will be tragic, said Fan Lu. Then I'll have to trouble you two for the rest. I'll go and report to the master, said Bai Ye, the youngest person of the trio. Fan Lu and Yan Mei stood up and bowed to him as he left. Chapter 88, Chapter 88, Possessed by the True Dragon's Remnant Soul. Chapter 88, Possessed by the True Dragon's Remnant Soul. At night, Jiang Hao rested in the small black room with his eyes closed. In his sleep, he saw the path that Li Kai had taken and even saw Li Kai himself. Jiang Hao followed Li Kai subconsciously until a purple light flashed, bringing him back to his senses. Jiang Hao was still asleep but was aware that someone had cast a spell on him. This sudden realization made Jiang Hao break out in a cold sweat. If he had not cultivated the Hongmeng Heart Sutra, he might have killed Li Kai and Ming Ziuoquan in his dream, as he had done in reality. Jiang Hao looked at the forest and turned to leave. He wanted to follow Li Kai, but he didn't dare. However, just as he turned to leave, Li Kai suddenly attacked. Jiang Hao subconsciously defended himself. He even asked Li Kai why he was attacking him, but Li Kai didn't respond. In the end, Jiang Hao was heavily injured. He fell to the ground. Li Kai's bone sword flashed and slashed down. Jiang Hao's eyes flew open. He looked around the dark room uneasily. He felt that something had locked onto him. It should be the work of some expert. Jiang Hao sighed. The consequence for killing a formidable disciple was indeed severe. Next time, he would lure them outside. It was no wonder that many people in the Heavenly Joy Pavilion restrained themselves even if they hated him. Jiang Hao wasn't a formidable disciple, but his name was on the law enforcement hall's list. They did not dare attack him. Who would want to risk going to the lawless tower anyway? Even if they made it out after a while, they would be crippled. Early the next morning, Jiang Hao stood outside the law enforcement hall, watching the sun rise. He was a little surprised. It was only the fourth day, and he had been released. In other words, the beast hadn't been caught and no one had any evidence to prove him guilty. "Congratulations, junior brother Jiang," said Lu Xingchen. "You are the only one who was released so early. Didn't you say it would take 7 days? It's because you have made great contributions to the sect, so they can't hold you for long. It must be stressful just having your name on the suspect list, let alone being locked up for days." Lu Xingchen walked with Jiang Hao. Moreover, the Cliff of Broken Hearts won't just sit around and watch without doing anything. Your recent contributions have made you valuable to the Cliff of Broken Hearts. Even the law enforcement hall can't take that away. As long as you are proven innocent, they cannot detain you for long. The others will have to stay put for another 3 or 4 days. Jiang Hao was surprised. The system was indeed fair. "Junior brother Jiang, you look surprised," said Lu Xingchen. "Although we are called the demonic sect, we do have a proper system in place. If someone kills the disciples, it reflects badly on the sect. The law enforcement hall is just. They will do anything to find the murderer. If they can't find them on time, the law enforcement hall will keep a close eye on everything. They might even summon the Heavenly Essence Soul Modeling Mirror for help." Lu Xingchen looked at Jiang Hao. "However, don't think that the sect is a safe place even with rules in place. If it's just injuries, the law enforcement hall wouldn't care. The decisions are all left to the 12 branches. The law enforcement hall only intervenes if things get serious." Jiang Hao understood. "You better be careful of the 100 Bones Forest," said Lu Xingchen. That puzzled Jiang Hao. "Why?" Lu Xingchen laughed. "Do you think you're inconspicuous? Your name had appeared so many times in the suspect list. You are associated with so many traitors. Everyone knows about you. Recently, you had a disagreement with Li Kai, and now he is dead. The person Li Kai followed might not be simple. He might target you in the future." Jiang Hao was shocked. He hadn't realized that he was so famous in the sect. He needed to keep a low profile. As for the 100 Bones Forest, Jiang Hao felt that he would be safe as long as he stayed in the Cliff of Broken Hearts. If you want to have a better life in this sect, you need to become a true disciple, said Lu Xingchen. If you become a true disciple, the 100 Bones Forest can't touch you. But then there will be no more restrictions on me to venture out, said Jiang Hao. The Heavenly Joy Pavilion would always find a way to do something to him outside the section. Right now, the law enforcement hall was like an impassable wall. If he didn't have the protection of that wall, the Cliff of Broken Hearts couldn't shield him, no matter how much they tried. There were also the Sunset Immortal Sect, the Black Heaven Sect, and the Heavenly Saint Sect at his back. How could he survive if they all came at him? Maybe become a true disciple first and then get on the list again, said Lu Xingchen. Jiang Hao thought that that was a good idea, but it wouldn't be easy. The first step was to withdraw from the list, which was not too difficult. Next, he would apply to become a true disciple. He had about a 70% chance of success. Then, he would need to get on the list again, which would be very difficult. So, I can somehow make it to the list later, asked Jiang Hao. Not very easily. Unless you're connected in some way to a traitor, said Lu Xingchen. Even then, the law enforcement hall won't put you on the list without enough evidence. Your status will be too high. They will only do that if the matter is too big to ignore. Jiang Hao was speechless. It was too risky. He suspected that Lu Xingchen was implicitly trying to make him find some traitor that he needed to catch. Jiang Hao hesitated. He then used his daily appraisal ability on Lu Xingchen. Lu Xingchen, true disciple of the heavenly faction. Born with the aura of a dragon and a cultivation base at the peak of the Golden Core realm. Nothing better to do than be a spy for the Heavenly Note Sect's law enforcement hall. The reason he is on good terms with you is to get close to the heavenly fragrance Dao flower to watch it carefully. He is paying attention to you because he thinks you are responsible for all the deaths. He is currently being possessed by the true dragon's remnant soul. There weren't many changes from when he had appraised Lu Xingchen the last time, except for the last line. Lu Xingchen is possessed by the true dragon's remnant soul. Jiang Hao was a little worried. So far, Lu Xingchen had been nothing but helpful to him in every way. Once the true dragon's remnant soul took over his body, the old Lu Xingchen would be lost to him. Should I tell him? Jiang Hao didn't know how to tell him. He would want to know how Jiang Hao had found out about it. There was no easy way to inform Lu Xingchen. Jiang Hao decided to pay close attention to Lu Xingchen. After a while, they parted ways and Jiang Hao headed to the Cliff of Broken Hearts. Jiang Hao went to meet his master and then returned to his house. The spirit beast was lying beside the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. It stared at it intently, as though it wanted to do something to the flower. It looked around and saw Jiang Hao. The beast jumped back in surprise. Master, you're back. Chapter 89, Returning the Favor. Chapter 89, Returning the Favor. Jiang Hao silently observed the spirit beast, taking note of its collar. He also saw that the beast didn't have a storage treasure on its body. He did not ask about it and instead proceeded to water the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. Within a few days, the immortal peach tree had shown some growth. Jiang Hao was pleased with its progress. I'll buy you a collar within a month. We'll talk about everything else after a month, all right, said Jiang Hao. He then headed to the spirit herb garden. The beast pointed at its collar. But it had cricked a lot. Why don't you help me fix it, master? You can fix it yourself. After that, he went to the spirit herb garden. Cheng Zhou was very happy to see Jiang Hao. The others also seemed relieved. The others were not easy to talk to, except for Han Ming, who he found easier to interact with. The only thing he had to remember was that he had to be respectful to Han Ming. As long as he stroked his ego, Han Ming wouldn't cause any trouble. Il asked around and found out that there was a similar incident with the bone flowers a few years ago. The 100 Bone Forest threatened a senior. He disappeared, said Cheng Zhou. The same thing happened 10 years ago as well. Jiang Hao frowned. The incident seemed to happen every few years. The deaths of Li Kai and Ming Xiuoquan couldn't stop the matter. The real mastermind was Bai Ye. Jiang Hao still didn't know who Bai Ye was. According to Lu Xingchen, the mastermind might target him. He needed to find out who Bai Ye was. I have to become stronger as soon as possible. Jiang Hao looked at Cheng Zhou. What level are you at, junior brother Cheng? I'm still in the 8th level of the lifeblood refinement realm, said Cheng Zhou in embarrassment. He's already in his 30s. Jiang Hao was in his 20s and was already at the Golden Core realm. He was called a senior because of his status as an inner sect disciple. As a true disciple, he would have had to call Han Ming senior brother if he had lost to him in the previous fight. What cultivation technique do you use? Jiang Hao asked again. 100 revolutions of heavenly note, Cheng Zhou said truthfully. The 100 revolutions of heavenly note was a high-grade cultivation technique that everyone in the Heavenly Note Sect could get access to. The Heavenly Note Sect didn't have 12 main branches before. It was said that the sect master destroyed each sect before turning them into subsects of the main section. The people from the Heavenly Note Sect were all from different lineages. The most important people formed the law enforcement hall and lived on the law enforcement peak. The 100 revolutions of heavenly note became a cultivation technique that was available to all. Jiang Hao decided to give some pointers to Cheng Zhou to improve his cultivation. Although his comprehension of the 100 revolutions of the heavenly note was not deep, he was in the golden core realm. He could guide someone in the Cheng Zhou was ecstatic to hear that Jiang Hao would help him out. To him, this was an opportunity of a lifetime. A month passed, and Jiang Hao was not called to the law enforcement hall. He didn't see any suspicious activity in the vicinity either. Bai Ye didn't appear either. The matter of 100 Bones Forest seemed to be slowly coming to an end. The people from the other spirit herb gardens were also released. The matter wasn't a small one, but it didn't cause an uproar either. Jiang Hao waited another month. 2 months had passed since Li Kai and Ming Xiuoquan's death. After making sure that everything had died down, he told the spirit beast to go and get its storage treasure from where it had hidden it before. "Master, can I buy a collar now?" The beast handed the storage treasure to Jiang Hao. "Where did you hide this?" asked Jiang Hao after making sure nothing was lacking. "In a turtle. The turtle is so old that it doesn't even move from its place. I hid it in its shell." Jiang Hao was impressed. The spirit beast was smart. "I'll buy you a new collar tomorrow." The spirit beast looked euphoric. It had waited a long time for a collar. Jiang Hao returned to his room and checked his interface. Lifeblood, 67/100, can be cultivated. Cultivation, 70/100, can be cultivated. It's more than half. If I cultivate, I have a high chance of breaking through to the late stage of the golden core realm. It feels a bit wasteful if it doesn't work. Jiang Hao had waited for the 100 Bones Forest to make a move after Ming Xiuoquan, but they had been too quiet. "Forget it, I'll just do it. I have been refining my cultivation for the past month. I feel that I can advance to the late stage." At night, Jiang Hao sat cross-legged on the ground and began to extract his blood essence for cultivation. This time, the power surged within his body right from the beginning. The Hongmeng Heart Sutra began to circulate, and Jiang Hao's entire body was covered in purple spiritual energy. The purple energy floated around him like a vortex. Jiang Hao felt the surging power in his body. He felt it trying to break through to the late stage of the golden core realm. However, it wasn't easy. His attributes kept dropping. He didn't dare lose his focus. The next morning, Jiang Hao's furrowed brows relaxed, and the purple energy gathered in his meridians. When all that subsided, a new power began to flow. A powerful aura spread around him. He had broken through to the late stage of the golden core realm. Jiang Hao opened his eyes and sighed in relief. That was close. I almost failed. He looked at his interface and was a little shocked. Name, Jiang Haojie. Cultivation, late stage of golden core realm. Lifeblood, 7/100, cannot be cultivated. Cultivation, 0/100, cannot be cultivated. I exhausted everything and barely advanced. I'm still unable to refine my cultivation, thought Jiang Hao. The rate is too low to refine everything. It would be safer to wait till it reached 100. Reaching the late stage of the golden core realm was a joyous occasion. Jiang Hao felt that he could even fight head-on with senior brother Mu Qi with this new power. Jiang Hao was also paying attention to Lu Xingchen. He had met and observed him for the past 2 months. There were no changes for now. He didn't even know why or how Lu Xingchen was targeted. When he went out to his courtyard, the spirit beast was already waiting for him. You can go to the spirit herb garden. I'll head there soon, said Jiang Hao. The spirit beast nodded. Master, be quick. Don't delay too much. Buy me a nice collar. Then the beast ran to the garden. It seemed to think that it would get a better collar if it rushed to the spirit herb garden and did its work. Chapter 90, Chapter 90, Can't afford to please the Demoness. Chapter 90, Can't Afford to Please the Demoness. Jiang Hao observed his courtyard. The heavenly fragrance deo flower was a little taller than before. Aside from that, there were no other changes. The immortal peach tree already reached his knee in just 2 months. Perhaps next year, it would bear fruit. It was growing unexpectedly fast. Fortunately, the heavenly fragrance deo flower hadn't matured very quickly. As long as the flower was here, Jiang Hao was considered valuable. The woman in red, Elder Beizi, and Lucine Chen all had their eyes on the flower. So, in a way, Jiang Hao had their protection. He had done his best to appraise the people who passed by in recent months, but he hadn't found anyone suspicious. Jiang Hao headed to the market. He had avoided the market to keep away from the disciples of the 100 Bones Forest. The first thing he did while in the market was to buy a nice gold collar. The spirit wanted its collar to be eye-catching. He wanted to return the favor because it had helped him. Next time, he would vui db11 vel unlil vec vel bilil. ILWUQVED11 LL1 less LLD5 high. It cost him 965 spirit stones. He asked the prices for collars that could be used on beasts at the late stage and peak stage of the Foundation establishment realm. The price was 1,500 spirit stones and 2,000 spirit stones, respectively. As for the golden core realm, he couldn't bring himself to ask. The price would certainly be exorbitant. Next time, I'll just save a lot of spirit stones and buy a collar that is suitable for a beast at the golden core realm. That way, I don't have to buy it again and again. After that, he went to buy some tea leaves. He bought the same tea he had bought before, the red azure tea. It cost him 150 spirit stones this time. He spent 750 spirit stones on the tea. He only had 300 spirit stones left. What he earned was barely enough to sustain the spirit beast and the Demoness. She only appeared once a month at most. How could it be so expensive to keep her happy? Jiang Hao sighed. She's been asking for tea all this time. I hope she doesn't ask for refreshments too. After that, he set up a stall to sell some talismans. He did not have many talismans, so he only earned about 400 spirit stones. With those spirit stones, he bought a stack of talisman-making materials. He bought talisman pens and beast blood for about 500 spirit stones. Now he had only 200 spirit stones left. Fortunately, everything was going smoothly. He didn't meet anyone from the Heavenly Joy Pavilion or the 100 Bones Forest. Perhaps they were waiting for the right opportunity to strike. Only those who weren't very strong made trouble. Others waited and planned something big. Jiang Hao didn't think anyone in the 100 Bones Forest would think he killed Ming Xiuoquan. Most people looked down on him anyway. Everyone believed that Jiang Hao had only made it to the top 10 because Manlong had chosen him to take the fall. Otherwise, he was someone in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm who wasn't worth much. Jiang Hao had heard many people whispering about him. He just ignored them all. However, he was worried that the Black Heaven sect would actually come looking for trouble. If the sect really pushed him out because of that, he couldn't bear thinking about it. He needed to become stronger. I either have to find something unique to plant or find a new mine to get some bubbles. When he returned to the spirit herb garden, Jiang Hao saw the spirit beasts waiting eagerly for him. He threw the collar at it. The beast jumped and caught the collar. Then, it placed it around its neck. "Master, do I look like a big demon?" asked the beast, twirling around to check out its new collar. "Not really," said Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao walked to check on the herbs and absorbed the bubbles. After absorbing the bubbles, Jiang Hao began to clean up. When Annie was tending to a specific herb that needed to be handled in a very tricky way, he felt impatient. He was surprised at himself. Jiang Hao had never felt like this before. He used to enjoy tending to the herbs. He had advanced from the 9th stage of the lifeblood refinement realm to the late stage of the golden core realm in less than 2 years. In 2 years, he had accomplished something that would have taken others so many years to achieve. It was inevitable for him to be a little proud. He was able to catch himself whenever he got arrogant, mostly thanks to the heaven extinction goo poison. Without it, Jiang Hao thought that his arrogance would have already killed him. Jiang Hao heaved a sigh of relief. I need to be more careful. Jiang Hao thought about the future. In another 2 years, he might be able to advance to the primordial spirit realm. After that, it might take 10 more years to cultivate his spirit. In 30 years, he could advance to return to void realm. Jiang Hao shook his head and chuckled. He was just daydreaming. The most important thing was to stay alive. For that, he needed to practice restraint and discipline. He tended to the herbs to calm himself. After returning to his house, he started to make talismans late into the night. This time, he took his time. He only drew one line of the character. He wanted to practice patience and get rid of his reckless thoughts. Undoubtedly, the talisman he was making failed. He then began to refine his cultivation. Days passed by, and Jiang Hao followed his routine. He didn't leave the Cliff of Broken Hearts during this time. Jiang Hao spent most of his time in the spirit herb garden, tended to the heavenly fragrance dao flower, and refined his cultivation. He also drew talisman after talisman. He followed this routine every day. Autumn passed and winter arrived. It snowed for a while. Soon, the winter passed, and spring was marked by green saplings pushing their heads through the dirt. Half a year passed in this way. During this time, the immortal peach tree continued to grow. It was already 2 meters tall. Jiang Hao noticed that he had a better grip on his impatience and recklessness now. He no longer felt the need to hurry things up. A beam of light appeared on Jiang Hao's desk. He had drawn an ordinary heart-cleansing talisman. It had taken him half a night, and he hadn't failed this time. Finally. Fortunately, no one had approached him to cause trouble in half a year. He hadn't found anything about Baiya yet. He also hadn't met Lu Xingchen for a few months and didn't know what was going on. The next day, Jiang Hao followed the same routine and refined his cultivation. He had used up all the talisman-making materials and hadn't earned any spirit stones yet. Now, it was time to get back into the world and earn some spirit stones. When he walked out of his house, he saw Lu Xingchen walking toward him. There was something wrong with his aura. Chapter 91, Chapter 91, True Dragon's Remnant Soul. Chapter 91, True Dragon's Remnant Soul. For half a year, Jiang Hao had stayed in the Cliff of Broken Hearts and didn't step out, but he still kept an eye on Lu Xingchen. However, neither Lu Xingchen nor the Demoness had come to visit Jiang Hao at that time. He had used that time to cultivate and practice mindfulness. Jiang Hao had constantly worried that something might happen to Lu Xingchen. Even then, he couldn't warn him. Now that Lu Xingchen was making his way to Jiang Hao's house, he noticed that something was terribly wrong. Jiang Hao had spent much of his time studying the Nameless Manual. He sensed that something was wrong with Lu Xingchen's aura. Perhaps it was dragon energy. Has he already been completely possessed? Lu Xingchen, true disciple of the heavenly faction. Born with the aura of a dragon and a cultivation base at the peak of the Golden Core realm. Nothing better to do than be a spy for the Heavenly Note Sect's Law Enforcement Hall. He was bored, so he let the true dragon's remnant soul possess him. The reason he is on good terms with you is so that can get close to the heavenly fragrance dao flower to watch it carefully. Quite interested in you. Jiang Hao was speechless. Was he just hallucinating? How could Lu Xingchen be so bored that he would let something possess him to just have a good show? Jiang Hao sighed inwardly. He really couldn't understand the different types of disciples in this sect. He had seen just one other person who was like Lu Xingchen. Fortunately, Lu Xingchen was not a threat to him for the time being. Otherwise, Jiang Hao would really be worried. The appraisal made him realize that his previous worries were unnecessary. Jiang Hao only needed to worry about himself now. Half a year had passed since the deaths. If there was anyone coming after him, they should have made a move by now. There was no reaction from the Heavenly Sound Sect either. Jiang Hao didn't know if they had given up or if senior sister Mingyi had dealt with it. "It's been a while since I last met you, junior brother Jiang," said Lu Xingchen with a smile. "Senior brother Lu, how have you been?" said Jiang Hao. They headed to the spirit herb garden together. The spirit beast walked ahead of them. It stopped to catch some fish in the stream from time to time. "Junior brother Jiang, your beast is extraordinary," said Lu Xingchen. "It is rare to see a beast in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm possessing such intelligence. Usually, beasts in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm weren't very smart. It was indeed rare for a beast to have such a high level of intelligence so early in cultivation." Jiang Hao sighed. "It might catch some unnecessary attention. You have lived quite peacefully these past few months. The matter with Azure Mountain and other things has long passed. It might not be long when the Black Heaven sect would appear to negotiate terms to take their captives back," said Lu Xingchen. "Have you heard anything about it?" Jiang Hao shook his head. "I haven't heard anyone mention it." However, he knew that this would have a huge impact on him. He had gotten tangled with Xian Yuantai without meaning to. "Then junior brother Jiang, please be careful and remain on your guard. The Black Heaven sect, the Wind Lightning sect, and the Sunset Immortal sect might all send people here. I just don't understand why the Black Heaven sect would believe that I was able to capture Xian Yuantai. I was only at the Foundation establishment realm at that time. How could they believe that? Shouldn't they be concerned about senior brother Manlong instead?" Lu Xingchen laughed. "Manlong is one of the top 10 disciples. I think the Black Heaven sect thinks it's too much trouble to target him." Jiang Hao sighed wearily. "So, they are just looking for someone whom they can harass easily. This matter is actually very complicated. When the time comes, they might not really come after you, but, in any case, just stay alert," said Lu Xingchen. "I'll mean it. Especially after the spirit herb incident. Is there a problem with the spirit herbs?" "The bone flower incident," specifically. Lu Xingchen looked at him. "Li Kai and Ming Xiuoquan both died, and they were both connected to the mutated bone flowers. That was a huge blow to the 100 Bones forest. No one from there dares to pull something like that ever again. But that doesn't mean everything is solved." Lu Xingchen paused. "Have you heard of someone called Bayet?" "Bayet?" Jiang Hao shook his head. "Never heard of him." Lu Xingchen nodded. "That's normal. Bayet is a very reclusive person. Even I rarely hear about him these days. However, it's not safe for him to remember you." Lu Xingchen looked worried. "He is very talented, especially when it comes to spirit herbs and spiritual medicine. People fall into his trap without them knowing about it. You think this person has his eyes on me?" He knew that Baya wasn't just an ordinary disciple. He could tell from the nutrient pearls he had found in Ming Xiuoquan's storage treasure. In the past months, Jiang Hao had carefully used those pearls to restore nutrients into the soil in the spirit herb garden. He didn't dare carry the nutrient pearls with him after being detained by the law enforcement hall. He was still worried that someone might attack him and check his storage treasure. Lu Xingchen nodded. "It's possible. Just be careful." "How strong is senior brother Bayet?" Jiang Hao asked. "Very strong, even stronger than me," said Lu Xingchen. "Although he isn't among the top 10 disciples of the sect, his talent and his contributions are still very remarkable." Jiang Hao was silent. If he was stronger than Lu Xingchen, it meant that he was beyond the Golden Core realm. Jiang Hao really couldn't afford to offend him. As someone who made his way to the top from being an outer sect disciple, Jiang Hao knew about his own capabilities. Junior brother Jiang, don't worry too much. You're associated with too many traitors, so the law enforcement hall cannot let you go yet. You're safe for now. It was such an irony that Jiang Hao was safe because of the traitors he already killed. Oh, right, you'll be assigned a mission soon, said Lu Xingchen. You do know that a chunk of the year had passed without any incident, right, said Lu Xingchen when Jiang Hao looked surprised. It's just a simple matter, said Lu Xingchen. You have to aid in recruiting new disciples. Recruiting disciples? Jiang Hao sighed. What kind of people would choose a demonic sect? Chapter 92, Chapter 92, An Invisible Method to Seal Cultivation. Chapter 92, An Invisible Method to Seal Cultivation. The demonic sects were different from the immortal sects. People wouldn't choose the former if they had a choice. The demonic sect was a cultivation sect where the strong devoured the weak. Jiang Hao was once sold into the Heavenly Note sect. It wasn't like he had a choice. The demonic sect was only safer when compared to the Devil's Denmark. Lu Xingchen left after that. Jiang Hao walked to the Spirit Herb Garden. Jiang Hao wanted to find out what the 100 Bones Forest was up to. If Lu Xingchen had personally approached him to warn him about them, then Jiang Hao was in danger. If only all the people around me were like Lu Xingchen. Jiang Hao was reminded of the Demoness. It had been a long time since he met her. He looked at his interface. Age, 22. Lifeblood, 77/100, can be cultivated. Cultivation, 71/100, can be cultivated. Divine ability, 0/3, cannot be obtained. I'm already 22. It felt like he was only 21 yesterday. Hong Yue hadn't visited for half a year now. His mind and his heart were calm, but he wanted to see her again. If she visited him, he could find out how much progress he had made regarding his impulsivity and recklessness. Without Hong Yue, Jiang Hao was in a perpetual state of calmness. This is the first time in my life that I'm looking forward to her arrival. In the Spirit Herb Garden, many people busied themselves with their own work. In the center stood a woman with a solemn face. She was dressed in beige clothes. Her hair was tied up in a simple bun. She was Fairy Ningxian. Jiang Hao had only met her once before. Back then, he didn't know about her cultivation realm. Now that he knew, he realized that she wasn't an ordinary disciple. She had surpassed the Golden Core realm. Greetings, Senior Sister Ning. Jiang Hao bowed to her respectfully. Greetings to you too, said Ningxian, icily. The 100 Bones Forest wants to plant some spirit herbs here. I heard you have some misunderstandings with them. If anything happens this time, you can directly tell me. Please plant them in a suitable area. Ningxian didn't think highly of Jiang Hao, nor did she look down on him. She treated him like how she would treat any other disciple. She was aware of the rumors regarding Manlong and Jiang Hao. All right, said Jiang Hao. His face was impassive. After that, Ningxian left without saying anything further. Junior brother Jiang, said a woman. I'm assigned with the 100 Bones Forest spirit herbs this time. I'm Lian Qin. Hello, Senior Sister Lian. Jiang Hao bowed. Jiang Hao could tell at a glance that Lian Qin was at the early stage of the Golden Core realm. These spirit herbs are quite precious, so I'll need to plant them myself. However, I'll have to depend on you a little, said Lian Qin. Later, if you find something wrong with the spirit herbs, you can come to me. I'll transplant them somewhere else. All right, she said. We'll set up the defensive formation ourselves. Lian Qin looked to be about 30. She was very polite about everything and was vastly different from Li Kai. If the 100 Bone Forest is really targeting me, then it won't be easy to deal with them. Senior Sister Lian, I'll do my best to help. A few people from the 100 Bones Forest, including Lian Qin, planted some spirit herbs in one corner of the garden. Some of the herbs were familiar to Jiang Hao. Others, not so much. He decided to do some research on the spirit herbs. Jiang Hao observed them, but nothing seemed amiss. In the evening, the people from the 100 Bones forest left. Jiang Hao was puzzled. They left just like that. There was no problem with the spirit herbs, and Lian Qin had told him that she would be responsible if he found a problem with the herbs. This was too unrealistic. Maybe I'm just overthinking. Jiang Hao had no choice but to wait and watch. For the next 7 days, he spent all his time observing the spirit herbs. He also refined his cultivation and created more talismans. He needed to wait for another 3 months to advance further. Only then would he be able to comprehend the third form of the 7 forms of the heavenly blade. Jiang Hao observed the spirit herbs but didn't find a problem with them. Bai Ye didn't make a move either. Jiang Hao decided to refine his cultivation. He needed to go to the market to get more talisman-making materials. Right now, he only had around 200 spirit stones. Jiang Hao sighed. He was never going to get rich at this rate. When he sat down to cultivate, he felt a sharp pain. His eyes flew open in alarm. What's this? He checked every part of his body but found no problems. He tried to circulate his spiritual energy again and felt the same stinging pain that blocked him from progressing further. Jiang Hao used the daily appraisal ability on himself. He found nothing unusual, except for the heaven extinction goo poison. What is wrong, then? He couldn't figure it out. The only new thing that had happened in the past few days was that the people from the 100 Bones forest had planted new spirit herbs. Lu Xingchen had told him that he would unknowingly fall into Bai Ye's trap. Was this it? The next day, Jiang Hao walked over to the spirit herbs that had been planted recently. He used the daily appraisal ability on them. 1000 Feather Flower. The 1000 Feather Flower has a continuous stream of spiritual energy. It can be used to elevate the conflict when refining cultivation. Planting it here was Bai Ye's idea. It uses an invisible method to seal your cultivation progress. Bai Ye. Jiang Hao had never heard of something like this before. It was no wonder that Bai Ye was considered dangerous. I need to find out who he is and what his cultivation realm is. Jiang Hao told Cheng Zhou to call Lian Qin and have her transplant the spirit herbs somewhere else. Let's see if that works. Fairy Lian Qin came over quickly. She neither refused nor refused Jiang Hao's request. She asked him where she could move the herbs to. Chapter 93, Chapter 93, Faster Than Mining. Chapter 93, Faster Than Mining. Junior brother Jiang, is there anything else? Asked Fairy Lian Qin. After a few days, Jiang Hao once again tried to cultivate in his house. However, he felt the same stinging pain that stopped him. The next day, he used the daily appraisal on the 1000 Feather Flower again. The result was exactly the same as last time. He realized that no matter where the plant was moved, the effect wouldn't go away. How did he even manage something like this? Jiang Hao felt that Bai Ye was indeed crazy. He didn't look for Lian Qin. It was useless to look for her anyway. She was cooperative and polite. She didn't mind moving the herbs somewhere else, but it didn't make a difference. He waited for another day. Jiang Hao tried cultivating once again. He endured the pain and used the daily appraisal while cultivating. There was new information that appeared this time. Status: Heaven Extinguishing Venomous Insect and Bai Ye's Spirit Sealing Technique. The Spirit Sealing Technique was created by Bai Ye. It uses the attributes, taste, and spiritual energy to seal cultivation. It is invisible, colorless, and intangible. You can break its effect by planting a black lotus beside you. Jiang Hao heaved a sigh of relief. His problem had a solution. However, black lotus was not easy to find. He needed to visit the Snow Lotus Pavilion. This was also not a long-term solution. He still needed to find Bai Ye. As soon as the sun rose, Jiang Hao headed to the Snow Lotus Pavilion. The black lotus seed cost around 300 spirit stones. He kept a healing talisman and sold the rest of them. When he had enough spirit stones, he bought a black lotus seed. The next day, he used the daily appraisal ability on the seed. He wanted to know how he could speed up its growth. Black lotus seed, powerful medicinal effect. After maturing, it can be used to increase one's cultivation. When planted, there will be invisible fluctuations that will affect the stability of the surrounding spiritual energy. 1 bottle of spirit liquid a day will help it sprout in 7 days. A bottle of spiritual liquid every day. Jiang Hao headed to the market to buy some spirit liquid. A bottle of spirit liquid cost him 30 spirit stones. He bought a total of 7 bottles. Jiang Hao was penniless once again. He sighed. The cost of raising a black lotus was high. 7 days later, the black lotus sprouted, and Jiang Hao got a blue bubble out of it. Jiang Hao had an idea. He had technically spent around 500 spirit stones for a blue bubble. If he had 50,000 spirit stones, maybe he could buy enough black lotuses to give him 100 bubbles. If he had 100,000 spirit stones, he could buy enough black lotuses to help him advance once every 7 days. This was faster than mining. It was all just wishful thinking. Where would he find 100,000 spirit stones anyway? Jiang Hao absorbed the bubble and began to cultivate. He didn't feel the stinging pain this time. He had wasted almost a month. Bai Ye was indeed terrifying. Master, why do you have so many different types of lotuses? Asked the spirit beast. There is a snow lotus, a blue lotus, and now a black lotus. Maybe get a white lotus next time. Jiang Hao was surprised. He had never noticed it before, but the beast was right. He didn't have many spirit herbs in his courtyard, but he had 3 types of lotus flowers. I wonder if anything will happen if I gather all 7 types of lotus flowers in my courtyard, muttered Jiang Hao absent-mindedly. Master, what are you saying? Nothing, said Jiang Hao. Let's go to the spirit herb garden. Bai Ye had made his move. The Heavenly Joy Pavilion was still waiting for an opportunity to attack Jiang Hao. He wanted to find out about Bai Ye as soon as possible. Master, I heard you have a mission to recruit disciples, said the spirit beast. Can I come with you? Jiang Hao shook his head. No. He was mentally exhausted. He didn't even know that the mission would be announced today. It was indeed difficult to survive in the demonic sect. If it wasn't someone trying to kill him, there was someone else sealing his cultivation. How did others survive? He was already 22, and he hadn't even congratulated himself for surviving this long. Shaking his head, he headed to the spirit herb garden. He collected bubbles and tended to the spirit herbs. Jiang Hao then made his way to the law enforcement hall to check the inevitable mission he was assigned. Jiang Hao of the Cliff of Broken Hearts. Mission, recruiting disciples. Minimum requirement, 300. Maximum, 1,000. Jiang Hao was surprised. So many? Is it because Azure Mountain really took a toll on the sect and the number of disciples? Jiang Hao remembered when he was sold to the demonic sect. They wanted to recruit 100 disciples at most. There weren't many people at that time, so the sect had to search everywhere. He was fortunate enough to be accepted as an outer sect disciple at that time. Although anyone could be recruited as a disciple, it helped if they had an aptitude for cultivation. Otherwise, they were left to fend for themselves in the demonic sect by doing menial jobs, which were often life-threatening. The mission wasn't easy, but Jiang Hao didn't have to complete the mission alone. He saw 4 other people from different branches. Zheng Shizhu of the Ice Moon Valley. Xian Yu of the Thunder Fire Peak. Feng Beifei of the 100 Bones Forest. Yu of the Flowing Waterfall. 2 people I already know, and 2 new ones from the 100 Bones Forest and the Flowing Waterfall. Normally, there shouldn't be a problem. Jiang Hao couldn't vouch for the 100 Bones Forest. I wonder if I can ask the disciple from the 100 Bones Forest about Bai yet. Something like that couldn't be rushed. He was only at the late stage of the Golden Core realm, after all. Although he had accumulated cultivation points, he was far from advancing to the next stage. He looked at the mission. It was 7 days later. It seemed that this time he didn't need to prepare so much. In the last mission, they all had been given a month to prepare before going to the Devil's Denmark. 7 days later, he was called by the Cliff Master to his residence. On the way, he checked his interface. Lifeblood, 89/100, can be cultivated. Cultivation, 83/100, can be cultivated. He was already close. In 2 months, he could advance to the peak of the Golden Core realm. Jiang Hao still didn't know how strong he needed to be to match up to Bai yet. "Master, I greet you," said Jiang Hao and bowed. "You are assigned with recruitment, right?" asked Ku Wuchang. During the recruitment process, it is important to find at least 3 talented and intelligent disciples and bring them to the Cliff of Broken Hearts. Under normal circumstances, the disciples would cultivate as outer sect disciples and wouldn't belong to any of the 12 branches. When their cultivation increased, they could choose to join any of the branches. However, the recruiter could choose 3 disciples for the branch they belonged to. "Understood, Master," said Jiang Hao. "What do you want to do here, Jiang Hao?" asked Ku Wuchang. "I want to mine." Jiang Hao didn't say that out loud. Jiang Hao wondered if he could ask his master for help to remove the 100 Bones Forest spirit herbs from the spirit herb garden. However, he did not want to alert the enemy now. When he found out who Bai Ye was and what cultivation realm he was in, Jiang Hao would make another trip to the 100 Bones Forest. Some things couldn't be rushed. Chapter 94, Chapter 94, Jiang Hao is chosen to take the fall. Chapter 94, Jiang Hao is chosen to take the fall. Jiang Hao sighed with emotion as he left his master's place. The Cliff Master, Ku Wuchang, had given him 3,000 spirit stones. It seemed Mu Qi had told him that he was in need of spirit stones. Jiang Hao hesitated and then accepted them. He had never earned so many spirit stones. If he could save another 2,000 spirit stones, he could continue feeding the spirit beast. It might just awaken the beast's bloodline completely. However, that would mean Jiang Hao needed a newer and stronger collar for the spirit beast. At the foot of Law Enforcement Hall, Jiang Hao met Xianyu and Zheng Shizhu. They smiled and greeted him. Xianyu smiled at him but was cursing inwardly. What sin did I ever commit in my past life to carry out a mission with Jiang Hao again? However, this time there was no one from the Heavenly Joy Pavilion, so there shouldn't be any problem like last time. Xianyu was okay as long as he didn't drag her down. At the 100 Flowers Lake, Hong Yuyi placed a stone tablet on the table. She seemed to be deep in thought. A figure in white approached her and bowed deeply. "Sect Master. Has the Heavenly Fragrance Dao flower made any progress in the last 6 months, asked Hong Yuyi. "It has grown a lot taller. The speed at which it grew is remarkable," said Beizi. "Jiang Hao has been unusually quiet in the past 6 months. He seemed to be hiding and cultivating." Beizi was puzzled. Was barely above average when it came to his talent at cultivation, but he seemed very determined. We also investigated and found out that there's nothing wrong with him. However, some things don't add up. He was the biggest suspect who was directly related to Ming Zhuoquan's death. But we found no evidence. If it wasn't him, it might have been someone under him. In my opinion, Jiang Hao doesn't seem like a traitor, but he also isn't entirely innocent. We still need to pay more attention to him. Considering that he is taking care of the Heavenly Fragrance Dao flower, traitors are bound to approach him anyway. It is possible that he is just being dragged into the fray by others who are actually traitors. Who is the person closest to him? Hong Yue asked. Lu Xingchen of Law Enforcement Hall. Is there a problem with him? From his behavior and past history, there seems to be no problem, said Beizi. However, not much is known about Lu Xingchen. He was tired of being a rogue cultivator, so he joined the Heavenly Note sect. Aside from that, his origins are a mystery. Is Azure Mountain planning anything? Asked Hong Yue as she walked to the flowers. Not after the blow they suffered last time. They are still recuperating. It's better to wipe them out by next year. No need. Just let them be for now, said Hong Yue. What's the Black Heaven sect up to? They said they might send someone to pick the captive, said Beizi. They want an explanation and also want to make someone pay the price for offending them. Then we wait for them to come, said Hong Yue. Oh, she picked up a box and threw it to Beizi. There was a wrist guard inside. Efforts need to be rewarded. Beizi bowed and left. She knew who the wrist guard was for. Jiang Hao was suspicious, but he was also worthy of a reward. Beizi thought that was at least how the sect master felt about him. As for Lu Xingchen, she didn't really care. Beizi was waiting for someone of high status to approach Jiang Hao. That was the only way to catch the traitors. It was difficult to get information about the higher UPS because they were very careful. The sect master had done her part by exposing the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. It was bound to attract traitors who thought they were safe in their high positions in the section. The appearance of the heavenly fragrance Dao flower might have alerted so many enemies from outside too. The Black Heaven sect might have a hidden purpose for coming here. Beizi didn't know what to do, but she could at least guess the sect master Hong's opinion of Jiang Hao. Was the heavenly fragrance Dao flower something that only Jiang Hao could raise? At the Black Heaven sect, Sidu Jian was sparring with another disciple. You have become better at this, said Sidu Jian. Not good enough, said Huo Tianyi as he shook his head. He left the training ground with Sidu Jian. I heard that the sect will be going to the Heavenly Note sect in the near future. What do you think of it? I think it's better if the sect brings back senior brother Xianyuan without causing any problems, said Sidu Jian. Huo Tianyi laughed. You're still the same. If the elders hear this, they might think you support the enemy. The Heavenly Note sect isn't as simple as it looks. 100 years ago, a Demoness took the throne. Her methods were ruthless and decisive. We should be careful. It is said that other sects joined forces to capture her, but she disappeared. But she has been gone for 60 years. She might be dead already. I heard that the Heavenly Note sect is also looking for someone to take the fall for us. Sidu Jian smiled and didn't say anything. The ones who were going to the Heavenly Note sect this time were ordinary elders, so nothing should go wrong. Sidu Jian said goodbye to Huo Tianyi and walked over to Ren Chuang. Ren Chuang talking to a middle-aged man. Tell me, when you were at the Heavenly Note sect, did anyone harass you? If anyone did something, I'll rush there and seek revenge, said Ren Tianhe. Ren Chuang touched her neck instinctively. She recalled Jiang Hao. However, she also remembered Sidu Jian's warning. Ren Chuang was a little afraid of Sidu Jian. She forced out a smile and shook her head. Nothing like that happened. Ren Tianhe looked at his daughter and sighed. You've grown up. After Ren Tianhe left, Sidu Jian approached her. It seems that you are not as stupid as I thought you would be, junior sister Ren. Ren Chuang was flustered. Senior brother Sidu, do you really think that person is very dangerous? I heard that he has been chosen by the Heavenly Note sect to take the fall. Even if he doesn't die, he'll be in danger. Who knows? Sidu Jian looked into the distance. Only time will tell. Let's just wait and see what happens. Perhaps the choice that you made today will work in your favor. Chapter 95, Chapter 95, Recruitment of Disciples. Chapter 95, Recruitment of Disciples. Junior brother Jiang, your cultivation has improved a lot, said Zheng Shizhu as they waited for others to arrive. Not really. I can never hope to compete with you, senior brother Zheng. In the previous mission, Zheng Shizhu found Jiang Hao calm and reserved. However, after what happened inside the Devil's Den, he didn't dare underestimate him. Junior brother Jiang, you won the competition, right? Asked Xian Yi. Jiang Hao nodded. I really wanted that seed. Zheng Shizhu sighed. You are always very cautious. Xian Yi felt that it was such a pity that he had won and still chose the most useless of all the rewards. If it had been the cultivation technique, she would have offered to buy it from Jiang Hao at a decent price. However, Ning Wanping had taken the cultivation technique. Xian Yu obviously couldn't get it from him. Many people were surprised that Ning Wanping had gotten the cultivation technique. He was actually the last one who got to choose the reward. Jiang Hao's victory once again made Xian Yu and Zheng Shizhu feel that this disciple wasn't as simple as he seemed to be. After a while, a woman with a huge sword on her back walked over to them. The sword at her back was very noticeable. She recognized Zheng Shizhu at a glance. Hello, I'm Yu from the Flowing Waterfall. I'm very sorry to have made you wait. That's all right. We just arrived. Zheng Shizhu smiled. Junior sister Yu, your sword is very eye-catching. Don't you feel tired of carrying such a huge sword? Not really. I need it for my cultivation, said Yu. Jiang Hao glanced at it. Yu looked calm and collected. She didn't seem like a person who liked to talk too much. Judging from her aura, she must be in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm. A bald man walked over to them. He had rippling muscles and looked very fierce. He was Feng Beifei of the 100 Bones Forest. When Jiang Hao looked at him, Feng Beifei glared back. After the 5 people had arrived, they headed out to complete their mission. The recruitment was supposed to happen on another hill. On the way, they would have to pass through an abyss surrounded by clouds. At this moment, they were flying across the abyss. The sea of clouds made it very difficult to see things. They were on high alert. It is said that the sect's spirit beast, the heaven-devouring giant crocodile, is kept below. Zheng Shizhu looked at the clouds. Jiang Hao had heard the same thing too, but he had never seen the beast. There were people who had visited the place, but none of them had confirmed if the rumors were actually true. I heard that someone was eaten by that crocodile. It was an accident, but the law enforcement hall was alarmed, said Yu. The 5 people increased their speed and crossed the abyss. After a while, they reached a mountain. There was a small square on top of it, but not many people were there, except a person who was at the early stage of the Foundation cultivation realm. Seniors, greetings, said Miao Xing. Miao Xing looked like he was in his 30s. It seemed that he was put to work to assist the sect because he had no hope of advancing further. Hello, junior brother Miao. Is everyone here already? Asked Zheng Shizhu. Yes. We were all waiting for your arrival, said Miao Xing. The weakest person from Jiang Hao's group was in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm. Miao Xing couldn't compare to them. He knew that, too. Junior brother Jiang, you have never done a recruitment, right? Asked Zheng Shizhu. I'll explain it to you. All the disciples who have entered the sect are already organized by the juniors. On the recruitment day, we just have to assess them and confirm their recruitment. The recruitment process is done in 2 ways. First, if someone has a talent for cultivation, we can directly recruit them. If the talent is not enough, then they have to go through another test that will gauge their willpower. If they do well in that, we can recruit them into the sect as disciples. If you feel that someone is suitable, you can even recruit them as an outer sect disciple for the branch you belong to. What we need to do now is to go to the foot of the mountain and see which disciples have a talent for cultivation. As long as Trnevi aren't taking, You can just recruit them. I see. Jiang Hao nodded. I wonder if we'll find anyone talented this year, said Feng Beifei. The others were also curious. Everyone felt excited when it came to the recruitment process. If there was anyone with outstanding talent, they could always recruit someone like that to their own branch. Jiang Hao looked down from the edge of the mountain. There were many people gathered there. We had a total of 2,656 people who signed up this time, but only 2,632 showed up today, said Miao Xing. Most of them looked very ordinary at a glance. Jiang Hao himself wasn't considered exemplary. He was only slightly above average. Let's go down and test their talent. Yu was eager. Jiang Hao felt relatively safer in this mission compared to the last. Feng Beifei occasionally glared at him but did nothing further. Everything was okay so far. He didn't think anyone would try to cause trouble during the recruitment process. This was an important mission for the sect, after all. Today, everyone put aside their grudges and did what they needed to do. They wanted to recruit the most talented to their own branch. Besides, the law enforcement hall had not found any proof of the murder. Since Jiang Hao was the biggest suspect at that time, the Hundred Bones Forest just treated him as the enemy. However, they didn't have the evidence to make a move. Jiang Hao's group and Miao Xing flew down to the foot of the mountain. The people cheered. Most of them yearned to join the sect. Jiang Hao understood them. He was once in their place and had wished he could fly magically too. However, once they joined the sect, they would understand that it would be so hard to survive, especially when powerful people kept harassing the weak. There were two parts to the test. First, they had to test the compatibility using a jade slip. The more compatible a person, the more spiritual energy they would absorb from the jade slip. The compatibility couldn't be faked or improved because it was something innate. The next test was the Heart Sutra. It was a test of comprehension. This test confirmed whether a person had the talent for cultivation. Jiang Hao and the others, led by Zhang Shizhu, sat at a table and waited for the people to approach them to test their compatibility. They only had about 10 jade slips, but it was enough for the whole group. A jade slip was divided into 7 sections. If 3 sections lit up, it meant that the person holding it was compatible with spiritual energy, and hence, could join as an outer sect disciple. If only 1 or 2 sections lit up, the person would have to do the comprehension test. If none of the sections lit up, they couldn't join the sect at all. Miao Xing instructed the people to form an orderly line. They were allowed to move forward in groups of 10. In the first batch, only one person managed to light all 3 sections. Xinu asked for his name and jotted it down. Jiang Hao could see the excitement and anticipation in these people's eyes. To them, it didn't matter whether it was a demonic sect or not. They just wanted to get in. Next batch, said Miao Xing. A little girl walked up to them. Jiang Hao was intrigued. Chapter 96, Chapter 96, the test was meaningless. Chapter 96, the test was meaningless. The girl was around 12 or 13 years of age. She had short hair and looked very disheveled. She looked malnourished. It was not uncommon for children to appear in groups like these. However, Jiang Hao saw more than most. The little girl's spirit was strong. Her physical strength was also remarkable. He could sense the spiritual energy between her breaths, but when she held the jade slip, nothing lit up at all. Jiang Hao knew that this wasn't an ordinary child. He was saving his daily appraisal ability in case he came across someone exemplary. If not, he would have used it on the child. Not a single person from this batch of 10 had managed to light up the jade slip. They needed at least 3 disciples to be recruited. If they couldn't find them here, they would have to search again. No talent, said the little girl in disappointment as she handed the jade slip back. Miao Xing was about to instruct the next 10 people to come forward when Jiang Hao stopped him. Wait. The others looked at him in confusion. "What's your name?" asked Jiang Hao. If the girl was talented, he would take her back and recruit her to the Cliff of Broken Hearts. If she really had no talent, then he could tell her to go back to where she had come from. The little girl pointed at herself in surprise. "Me? Li. My name is Li." "All right. Stand at the side and wait for the next test," said Jiang Hao calmly. Zheng Shizhu and the others were puzzled. They couldn't understand what Jiang Hao was trying to do. Miao Xin was confused as well. However, he didn't ask anything further. Little Li stood at the side and waited. "Does Little Li have some kind of hidden talent?" Yu asked. Yu looked at the little girl. "She does have strong limbs and a great constitution. However, I can't sense anything from her. If she has no talent, I guess she could always learn martial arts." Feng Beifei shook his head in disdain. They all had limited spots and wanted to recruit very talented disciples for their respective branches. The test continued. From time to time, they found some people who could make 3 sections of the jade slip light up. However, no one till now had managed to light up 4 of the 7 sections. Jiang Hao and the others weren't in a hurry. They wanted to do this process slowly to find talented disciples. If 4 sections lit up, it meant a person had average talent. 5 and above was decent. However, nobody had ever managed to light up all the sections. That was uncommon. If something like that happened, they would have to inform their respective masters. Extraordinary people like that were usually fished out from the masses and taken to the branches. After testing 100 people, a girl managed to light up all 5 sections. After her, other 2 people managed the same. When they tested 500 people, someone with a superior talent appeared. It was a sloppy little boy. Everyone remembered his name. Jiang Hao paid attention to everything. The recruiters could choose 3 people for their own branch. Naturally, they remained on their guard. The test went smoothly. They had tested around 2,000 people by now. Some were happy to have passed, and others were sad. So far, they had found 9 people who showed above average talent. Zheng Shizhu reminded them that a recruiter couldn't choose all 3 people with high potential. This was to give all the branches a fair chance. At this moment, 3 people approached the table. 2 boys and a girl. They were from the same village. One of the boys looked strong, while the other seemed frail and weak. The girl also seemed strong. Jiang Hao glanced at the frail boy out of the 3 people. He could sense that something was different about that boy. Something hidden. The other boy and the girl held the jade slips. All 7 sections lit up for both of them. Zheng Shizhu and the others were shocked. They got up from their seats. Jiang Hao didn't want to be the odd one out, so he stood up too. The recruiters were ecstatic to find top-notch talents. Meanwhile, Jiang Hao couldn't help but stare at the frail boy. Only 3 sections of the jade slip lit up for him. He barely made it. Jiang Hao wanted to use the daily appraisal on him, but he held himself back. He wasn't in a hurry, and he could always appraise them later. Zheng Shizhu calmed himself. "You two, come here. Tell me your names." The boy and the girl walked over to him, while the frail-looking boy was left behind. He looked dejected. Jiang Hao didn't say anything. It couldn't be helped. Besides, the frail boy would survive longer in the demonic sect if he kept a low profile and stayed out of the way. People usually tried to harass weak people like him if he sought out too much attention. I am Zhao Qingxiu," said the girl. "My name is Lin Mo," said the boy. Zheng Shizhu turned to the others. "What do you all think?" "I don't think we can decide matters like these," said Xianu. "The 100 Bones Forest will be willing to take one of them," said Feng Beifei. "Would you indeed?" said Yu. "We can't decide whether we want them or not among ourselves. They have top-notch talents. Junior sister Xian is right. We need to take them back with us and have the elders decide. Or do you think the 100 Bones Forest has the authority to choose for everyone? Do you think other branches have to sit tight and watch while you take them away? Who are you to decide who gets what anyway? Feng Beifei said in disdain. What do you think, junior brother Jiang? Asked Zheng Shizhu. It's up to you, senior brother Zheng, said Jiang Hao politely. No matter what they did, everyone knew that none of them had the authority to decide something like this. They could either inform their masters now or take the disciples along with them to solve the matter later in the section. Maybe we should just get on with it, said Jiang Hao. There might be others equally talented among the crowd. They nodded. Zheng Shizhu told Miao Xin to keep the people coming in batches. They didn't find any top-notch talent other than the boy and the girl from before. Some were average, and others were just slightly more decent than average. Jiang Hao suddenly frowned. A young man approached them with a sweet smile. She was already in the Golden Core realm. She looked at them and smiled even more. Should I test too? She held the jade slip, and all 7 sections lit up. The others also knew that something was wrong. She was someone at the Golden Core realm, so the test was meaningless. Miao Xin also felt that this was strange. Any of you from the Cliff of Broken Hearts? Asked the woman. I am. Jiang Hao got up. Is something the matter? I want to join your branch. I heard you each get 3 spots to recruit people to your own branch. Select me, she said rudely. May I ask who you are? Jiang Hao asked politely. Miao Tinglian, said the woman and smiled. Jiang Hao was surprised. Part 5 of the series ends here. If you enjoyed it, please give us a like and subscribe so we can be motivated to make even better videos in the future.